Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. I, Blackbeard, start by asking for dark fruit. Chapter 31. Boom. Just when everyone was shocked, a burst of white smoke started rising from where Krieg was standing. After 10 seconds the white smoke disappeared and he had disappeared to the original place. Seeing this scene, Badgers and everyone exclaimed. When the white smoke dissipated, Krieg's figure had disappeared. Wow. This caused another uproar among everyone. Krieg ran away. Just when everyone was looking for Krieg's figure appeared on the huge pirate ship parked in the port where the Master of Cooking competition was held. Just listen to him laughing wildly. Ha 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 ha. What a bunch of idiots. Do you really think that 150 million heads can scare me? Lousy as Admiral Krieg. As long as you are a human being, you will die if you are poisoned. Lousy has taken your 150 million heads. Gas bomb. Krieg, who was more than 100 meters away, raised a golden barrel, pointed it in the direction of Blackbeard, and pulled the trigger. Boom. The next second, a cannonball that was tens of centimeters long and the size of a fist was fired into the sky more than 10 meters above where Blackbeard and the others were, and exploded immediately. At the same time, Krieg, who was more than 100 meters away, skillfully raised his hand and put on a gas mask for himself. The other members of the Krieg pirates who were still on the shore also skillfully took out their gas masks and put them on themselves. Obviously this was not the first time they had done this. At this time, an orange-haired girl hiding on Krieg's ship saw this scene, and her big eyes were filled with shock. Apparently this was the first time she had seen a pirate using poison gas bombs. Or use it in a place with so many people. Is this guy going to commit massacre? Looking at the exploding purple mist that filled the sky, the orange-haired girl suddenly felt a numb scalp. She immediately took out the stolen gas mask and put it on herself. While lamenting that pirates bite dogs, I also felt sad for the civilians. Being inexplicably involved in a fight between pirates is perhaps the tragedy of ordinary people in this era, right? However, she was suddenly surprised to find that the members of the Blackbeard pirates in the distance did not show any signs of panic. Facing the purple poisonous gas that covered them, many civilians with weak constitutions had turned pale and passed out. The pirate named Blackbeard just waved his hand calmly and said, "Poison Q is left to you. It's a piece of cake, Captain." Poison Q grinned, revealing a pair of yellow teeth, and then he opened his mouth and made an inhaling motion towards the sky. Hiss. This time he really gasped. Oh, no, it should have been a breath of poisonous gas. Immediately, everyone watched helplessly as the purple poison mist that spread hundreds of meters turned into a thin purple line and entered Poison Q's mouth. Even the purple poisonous mist that was inhaled by civilians floated out of their mouths and noses, and was also sucked into the mouth by Poison Q. 10 seconds later, hiccup, Poison Q burped, looked at Krieg in the distance and smiled. The poison gas is not bad, thanks for the hospitality. Nani. Krieg was scared out of Enel's shocked face. The same is true for the surrounding Krieg pirates members. At this time, all of them felt their scalps numb. That was a gas bomb that had easily poisoned hundreds of people, and it was actually swallowed by that guy. Are these guys monsters? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Krieg also felt a numbness in his scalp at this time, and immediately roared angrily, raised his finger and pointed at Blackbeard and the others and said angrily, "Young ones, why are you still standing there? Give them all to me. Cut him to death. If someone is chopped, they will die. Come on." Quote. The members of the Krieg pirates had obviously been under Krieg's lust for a long time. After being intimidated by his angry roar, these pirates actually all jumped off the pirate ship, shouting and holding long swords. The knife rushed towards Blackbeard and the others. With the Krieg pirates currently numbering between 2,000 and 3,000, this charge seems quite powerful. Especially on this small port. These 2,000 to 3,000 people almost completely occupied the port. Run quickly. These pirates are crazy. Completely crazy. Marine. Where is Marine? First it was poison gas bombs, and now it is a charge of 2,000 to 3,000 people. Those civilians had never seen such a scene before. At this time, they finally realized that they were afraid and they screamed and ran away. Seeing this scene, everyone in the Blackbeard pirate group couldn't help but frown, and then they turned to look at Blackbeard. They all know that their captain has the ability to group seconds, so they want to ask Blackbeard's opinion. Forget it, to avoid trouble, let me do it quickly. After saying that, Blackbeard took 2 steps forward under the doubtful eyes of everyone, and then looked at the 2,000 or 3,000 people rushing towards him. His eyes widened. Buzz. The next moment, a majestic momentum surged directly from Blackbeard towards the 2,000 or 3,000 people rushing forward. Hula. In just one breath, the swords and guns in the hands of the 2,000 to 3,000 pirates who were still rushing forward fell to the ground with a clang, clang, clang. Plop, plop. Immediately afterwards, these pirate minions rolled their eyes and fell to the ground one by one. In just a few breaths, 2,000 to 3,000 pirate minions all fell to the ground. This scene caused the civilians who were still running to stop again and looked at this scene with shock and curiosity. Although they didn't know what happened, they knew it was the tall hockey man who was responsible. But that man didn't do anything just now, he just took 2 steps forward and stunned 2,000 or 3,000 people. Who is this man? Everyone was stunned. Not only the civilians and the Marines who were secretly observing, but also other members of the Black Group. It took a while for Fanoka to react, and he took a deep breath and said, "Can the Captain's Conqueror's hockey be retracted and deployed freely? Ah, let's make do." Having said that, Blackbeard had a smile on his face. Vivi and Badgers were still shocked. Although they had heard Blackbeard explain Conqueror's hockey to them before, they were not as shocked as seeing it with their own eyes. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. You guy is definitely a monster. Hit him. Fire. 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 Krieg was scared to death. No matter how arrogant he was so frightened that he turned pale when faced with such a scene. But he forgot, where is anyone on the pirate ship now? After shouting several times, there was no sound of firing. Blackbeard in the distance shook his head and said, "Forget it, I'm a little annoyed too." After saying that, he turned sideways and raised his hand to face Krieg, who was standing tall on the top of the observation basin more than 100 meters away, and said calmly, "Universal pull." What? Before Krieg could react, his body was ripped off the observation basin like a cannonball and flew towards Blackbeard. Just as he was breathing, Krieg was grabbed by Blackbeard's neck and lifted into the air with a snap. Immediately, under everyone's shocked eyes, Blackbeard grabbed Krieg's neck and threw him to the ground like the ghost mannequin. Boom! As the ground trembled violently and smoke and dust flew up, there was a huge pit with a diameter of more than 10 meters. Krieg was half-body stuck in the soil, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Ignoring everyone's shock, Blackbeard raised his hand and pointed at a woman with fiery red hair in the chef group who was called aside by the Krieg pirates. "You, come with us, you will be the chef of the Blackbeard pirates from now on." Everyone subconsciously looked in the direction of Blackbeard's finger, and soon they recognized this woman. Flame Carmen, the woman known as East Blue's #1 chef. Before everyone could marvel, they saw Blackbeard suddenly turn around and look at Krieg's ship. The Delito Nord Saberu suddenly showed a smile, raised his hand and waved. "And you, that orange-haired little girl, you are my navigator. So being a pirate is good. Just grab whatever you want." It just so happened that Blackbeard felt that the current pirate ship was already a bit small. After all, there were 4 more people on board. It just so happened that Krieg's ship, the Delito Nord Saberu, was very nice. It was big and spacious and could at least be used for a while. At this time, in the cabin conference room of the Saberu, everyone from the Blackbeard pirates took their seats. There are also the 4 people who were just forced aboard by Blackbeard. They are Flame Carmen, known as the #1 chef in East Blue, and her 2 apprentices, Jose and Leo. The other one is naturally Nami, the navigator who was one of the protagonists in the previous life. Originally, Blackbeard came to East Blue to find a chef, but he also wanted to try his luck to see if he could find Nami as a navigator. He even thought that if he didn't meet her in Logue Town this time, he would go directly to Coco West Village to wait for her. No way. After experiencing the big storm event 2 days ago, Blackbeard deeply understood the importance of being a navigator on the sea. If he hadn't had the ability to control the flight of ships, I'm afraid they would all have fallen into the sea to feed the fish that time. But the ability to fly is not omnipotent. As an old pirate fan, I know best how the Golden Lion Pirate Alliance was defeated. That's why Teach tried every means to find a good navigator. However, in his impression, the one with the best navigation skills and the easiest one to find was naturally Nami in East Blue. With these thoughts in mind, Blackbeard glanced at the four people who looked not very good looking and smiled. You guys are going to be companions from now on, so don't be so unhappy. To be honest, it is impossible to get off my Blackbeard's ship. What's more, what's wrong with being a pirate? It also eliminates the possibility of being captured as a slave by the celestial dragons. Just you, Carmen. You are pretty and your cooking skills are good, but your current horizons are limited to East Blue. If you follow me, I can not only let you taste different ingredients from all over the world, but also take you across the Grand Line. There are more powerful chefs there, as well as dishes that can enhance one's physical fitness after eating them. You may even find all Buell if you follow me. How? Think about it carefully, right? Quote, after hearing Blackbeard's words, Flame Carmen, whose face was not very good looking at first, gradually showed a thoughtful look on her pretty face with heavy makeup, and her eyes became brighter the more she listened. It had to be said that Blackbeard's beautiful words touched her heart. This is definitely a big temptation for every chef. In addition, she had seen Blackbeard's previous behavior at the Logue Town Harbor, and knew that he was not the kind of crazy murderous pirate. She glanced at the two young apprentices, and they were obviously very moved. Thinking of this, she no longer hesitated, looked at Blackbeard and said with a smile. Oh he. Well, I will go with you to see if the Grand Line you mentioned has such magical cuisine. If you find out then that you lied to me, don't blame me for running away secretly. Quote, ha 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 ha. When Blackbeard heard this, he laughed happily and said, don't worry Carmen, the food that can enhance one's physical fitness is on the peach-colored island in the Grand Line, called Kamabaka Kingdom. That was the place known as the second daughter country besides Nine Snakes Island. I'll take you there if I have a chance. Quote, hearing Blackbeard speak in such detail, and having felt his courage before, Carmen also knew that this kind of man would basically not lie, and the smile on her face immediately became more sincere. Okay, I believe you. Blackbeard nodded with satisfaction, then looked at the orange-haired girl who was silent to one side, and immediately spoke under the latter's shocked eyes. Nami, what are your choices? Brush. Hearing Blackbeard's words, Nami suddenly raised her head and looked at him in disbelief and said, how do you know my name is Nami? I never say my real name. The other members of the black group also looked at their captain curiously. I wonder if the captain knows this girl. Ignoring the looks of others, Blackbeard pretended to be profound and said, this is related to an application of observation hockey. It's still too far away for you now. All I can say is that I understand everything. Now you only need to consider whether you are willing to be my navigator and follow me to conquer the Grand Line, and maybe even turn the world upside down. Quote. Nami nodded in confusion, but soon she gritted her teeth and said, since you know my name without me explaining it, I won't hide it. I personally hate pirates the most. But it's not impossible for you to ask me to be your navigator, as long as you agree to one condition. Quote. Snapped. Blackbeard snapped his fingers and smiled. Okay, I agree. Nami looked at Blackbeard in shock. You agreed before I even said anything. What if you can't do it? If you can't do it, I'll let you off the boat. Lousy never breaks his promise. Blackbeard spoke firmly. Nami's big eyes lit up when she heard these words, and then she said eagerly. Since you are a big pirate with a bounty of 150 million belly, can you beat the fishman? Although he only has a bounty of 20 million. Way ha 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 ha. Before Blackbeard could speak, Badgers laughed and said, I said Miss Nami, do you underestimate our captain? Please remove the word. A mere 20 million bounty does not require our captain to take any action. I can easily solve it by myself. Quote, really? Upon hearing this, Nami immediately looked at Blackbeard with hope, waiting for his confirmation. Blackbeard nodded naturally and said, it's not just Badgers. Now, except for Carmen and the others who just boarded the boat, and Ikaram, who is in charge of driving the boat, everyone else can easily deal with the fish man you mentioned. Having said this, Blackbeard paused, pointed at Zhuangzhuang, who was lying on his back with his butt sticking out, and said, well, even Zhuangzhuang can easily deal with him. Nani. Hearing this, not only Nami, but also Carmen and her two useless apprentices exclaimed in disbelief. Seeing this, Blackbeard grinned and said, don't underestimate Zhuangzhuang. It is a Pegasus in the form of a Pegasus after eating the Zone Devil fruit. It is a miraculous beast. Whether Arlong, a mere murloc, can withstand Zhuangzhuang's hoof is a question. Hearing Blackbeard say Arlong's name directly, Nami's hanging heart was completely relieved. As long as she can defeat Arlong's gang and save Kokoyashi village, so what if she got on this ship? Okay, as long as you can help me get rid of Arlong's gang and save Kokoyashi village, I will agree to be your navigator. Nami looked at Blackbeard solemnly and stretched out her small white hand to him. Snapped. Blackbeard gave her a high five and then smiled. Nami, then feel free to become our navigator. Just leave your family's safety to us. Quote. Seeing Blackbeard so happy, Vivi and the others didn't understand why their captain was so persistent in recruiting this girl to become a navigator, but they didn't ask any more questions because Blackbeard had already established enough trust in them over the past few days. Then shall we set off now? Nami couldn't wait any longer. Not urgent. Blackbeard waved his hand and looked up as if he was seeing the distance through the cabin. Now there is a marine fleet surrounding us. You go and collect the treasures of the Creek pirates first. I will go and deal with the marine fleet and then set off. Adertisement. Hearing what their captain said, Vivi and the others immediately exclaimed. Marine fleet, when did you come? Did you come after Krieg and the others? Captain, how many warships are there? Obviously, the members of the Black Group were startled by the sudden arrival of the marine fleet. It would be fine if it were just one or two marine ships, but if it was a fleet, it would really surprise them. You must know that marine warships are basically recognized as the best ships on the sea. If there is a naval battle, most pirate ships and most ships are no match for marine warships. Not to mention a marine fleet. As for the marine fleet that surrounded this time, although there were no large warships, the number was considerable. Blackbeard had already scanned the number of all warships before, and now he heard everyone's words and immediately laughed. One medium-sized marine warship and 22 small warships. Take less. 23 ships. Everyone in the Black Group exclaimed. They were really shocked by the number of warships that came this time. Fan Oka said calmly, there are so many warships. It seems they are coming for the Creek pirates. We must be implicated. Then can we sneak away? Nami immediately asked cautiously. Blackbeard grinned at them and said, I'll tell you some unfortunate news. This marine fleet is coming for us. No, to be precise, it's coming for me. After all, there is no bounty on your head yet. But after today, some of you should be asking for a reward. So while no one is paying attention to you now, go and take the treasures from the other pirate ships of the Creek pirates, as well as the treasures from our own pirate ship, and put them on the Sabaru. Once I take care of these marine warships, we can leave. Quote. Well, there's no need to collect the treasures from other ships. Nami raised his hand and said with a smile, I've stolen them all, and they're in the storage room down there. Everyone couldn't help but smile. Blackbeard snapped his fingers and smiled. In this case, it will be more convenient for me to deal with the marine fleet. Carmen, who had just boarded the ship, obviously had no way of understanding the meaning of Blackbeard's words. Kazilin stared at Blackbeard with her big eyes wide and said, Captain, are you going to deal with a marine fleet by yourself? I didn't doubt what you meant. It's just that I can't think of how one person can deal with a marine fleet. Quote. Blackbeard said lightly, Want to know? If you want to know, I'll take you to see it. I also want to see. Vivi spoke up immediately. Then Nami also raised her hand. Then Fan Oka and the others also coughed. They are obviously very curious about how their captain can deal with a marine fleet. Even if it is a small or medium-sized marine warship, there are more than 20 of them. It's equivalent to a small buster call. Then let's go. If you lead one person, you are leading. If you lead a group, you are leading. There is no difference. Blackbeard didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But since Nami has already collected the Creek pirates' treasure in advance, there's no need to worry about it. Even if the Logue Town officers notified naval headquarters, their support would not be that fast. Moreover, he was quite impressed by the Marine Rear Admiral named Nelson Roy. After all, it was the last boss of the Straw Hats heading to the Grand Line in the previous story. It's the Marine Admiral Nelson who wants the 1,000-year dragon bone to gain immortality. He seems to have Paramecia, a sickle fruit user who he hired to find the Millennium Dragon. If you can still see this guy in a while, you can get this sickle fruit from him. With these thoughts in mind, Blackbeard led a group of Black Group members behind him out of the conference room and came to the bow of the Sabaru. Guide all things. As Blackbeard walked to the bow of the ship, he shouted, and Vivi, Nami and others behind him heard a buzz. Immediately, a huge black disk with black mist slowly emerged from behind Blackbeard, and then he slowly rose into the sky. Crash. Before they could react, everyone felt the 100-meter-long ship Sabalu under their feet tremble suddenly, and then it immediately broke away from the sea and floated. Ah, the ship is flying. Nami, Carmen, Jose and Leo, who had never seen this move before, immediately exclaimed. The civilians and Marines who were peeking at the situation from a distance were also stunned. Is this the trick again? Badgers looked interested, but soon his smile froze on his face. Rumble, rumble, because the next second, he saw not only the Sabalu they were on, but also the other 29 small pirate ships of the Creek pirates floating in the air. But for the time being, they had just left the sea and were floating 1 or 2 meters above the sea when these pirate ships stopped. This is naturally not because Blackbeard can't make these pirate ships float, but because the marine fleet with chain links in front has surrounded them, and at the same time, there is a huge horn sound coming from above. Listen to the Blackbeard pirates on the island, you have been surrounded, please surrender immediately, otherwise our great Admiral Nelson will directly launch a bombardment to destroy you. Listen to the Blackbeard pirates on the island, you have been surrounded, please surrender immediately, otherwise our great Admiral Nelson will directly launch a bombardment to destroy you. Listen to the Blackbeard pirates on the island, you have been surrounded, please surrender immediately, otherwise our great Admiral Nelson will directly launch a bombardment to destroy you. Wow. After hearing the warning sounds from the horns of the 23 warships on the sea, Blackbeard and the others had not made any movement yet. The Marines and civilians who were secretly observing behind them all changed their expressions and were in an uproar. Marine warships going to bombard Logue Town port. How dare they? Captain Logue Town Marine, who was also observing in secret, looked extremely ugly. Although he had heard the rumors about Nelson Rear Admiral, he never imagined that he would dare to be so unscrupulous. How many civilians would be harmed? Why hasn't Colonel Smoker arrived yet? Captain Marine's teeth are almost broken. But at this moment, Blackbeard, floating above the Sabaru, stood in the air with open arms, and endless black mist rose into the sky behind him, laughing wildly. Thief, ha 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 ha, just the Marine fleet wants to destroy me. If you can do it, give it a try. Quote, having said this, Blackbeard changed the subject and said coldly. Then, I will give you 1 minute to retreat. Otherwise, I don't mind destroying a Marine fleet with my own hands. Don't say you didn't predict what you said. Quote, brew brew brew. At the same time, on a medium-sized warship on the sea a few hundred meters away, the Marine Admiral Nelson Rear Admiral, who was as fat as a pig, was eating in his fat seat when he heard the phone ringing next to him. Kacha, the lieutenant next to him immediately answered the phone. Admiral Nelson, not only did the Blackbeard pirates refuse to surrender, they even dared to make wild threats to destroy your marine fleet. Nani, Nelson Rear Admiral immediately wanted to get up angrily when he heard this. Unfortunately, the fat on his body made it difficult for him to move. He could only raise his fat hands and roared. Fire at me. Destroy those pirates directly. What? Hearing this, the lieutenant on the side changed his expression and said. But, Nelson Rear Admiral, that is the port of Logue Town, and there are many civilians there. Shut up, Nelson roared at him. Are you teaching me something? Let me execute it. The Marine lieutenant also wanted to argue. But we're Marine, how can we? Tisk. But before he could finish his words, several bloody arrows were slashed from his body by the wind blade, and then he turned around in disbelief. He saw a man in a purple suit wearing slender sunglasses and pointed hair looking at him with a sneer. Very well, Eric, go and execute it. When Nelson Rear Admiral saw this scene, instead of stopping him, he showed a satisfied smile. He turned to look at Eric and said, cover the entire place where that pirate group is with artillery fire. In an hour, I want to see that Blackbeard's head. He will be the key to my promotion. Ha 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 ha. Leave it to me, Lord Nelson. Eric bowed, then turned around and walked to the bow of the ship, holding the phone and shouting. Lord Nelson has handed over command to me. Now, all warships obey my orders. Artillery fire covers the port where the Blackbeard pirates and Creek pirates are located in front, and I will completely wipe them out. Quote. After receiving the order, other small warships could only fire along with Nelson's medium-sized warship. Boom boom boom. The next moment, hundreds of cannonballs were fired directly towards the Logue Town port. The civilians watching the excitement at the port of Logue Town, as well as the Marine who was secretly observing, were horrified when they saw this scene. They never expected that the Marine warship would actually fire at Logue Town. Run. It's over, it's over. I shouldn't have stayed to watch the fun. That lunatic Nelson. I'm going to sue him to the headquarters. Evacuate. Everyone evacuate to the inside of the town. Just as hundreds of people began to run towards the center of the town, standing on top of the port stone pier, there was a man with a green coxcomb and a nose ring, but he bared his fangs and made no attempt to avoid these shells. And at this moment, in the sky ahead, Blackbeard, who was floating in the air, laughed wildly when he saw this. Thief, ha 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 ha. It seems that there are quite a few frogs in the well of East Blue. Forget it, let you experience the differences in the world. Darkness. Wow. As Blackbeard's words fell, a sky-wide black mist suddenly spewed out from around him. In just a breath, it turned into a kilometer-long black curtain that stretched across the sky, almost surrounding the first half of Logue Town's port. Puff puff. In the next second, more than 100 cannonballs were fired into the black screen. But the expected explosion didn't happen. Instead, it was like a stone falling into the sea, not even a splash of water. It just caused the kilometer-long black screen to surge slightly and then stopped making any movement. Nani. Eric, who was standing on the bow of the medium-sized warship, was shocked and opened his mouth wide when he saw this scene. The civilians and Marines who were halfway running to the port of Logue Town in the rear looked like stupid road deer when they saw this scene, and they stopped again. In fact, the attributes of a fun person have emerged again. Blackbeard didn't give them much time to react. He immediately grinned and raised his hand. Want to know where the cannonballs went? Return them to you. Puff puff. Those shells that were sucked into the black screen that stretched across the sky were actually shot out again, returning faster than when they came, and hit the muzzles or barrels of those warships hard, superior. Boom boom boom. All of a sudden, the warships with chains in front of them exploded one after another. This sudden scene, whether it was the Marine on the warship or everyone in Logue Town, were dumbfounded. Demon fruit power. How can devil fruit be used like this? Isn't this too awesome? However, what really shocked them was just the beginning. Blah blah blah. Because just 10 seconds later, the 29 pirate ships of the Creek pirates took off into the air, reached an altitude of 20 to 30 meters, and flew quickly towards the Marine fleet ahead. Although this speed is much slower than that of cannonballs, this speed is not something that the warships with chain-linked iron chains on the distant sea can react to. Hey, you're lying, right? After seeing this scene, the members of the Black Group, Nelson Rear Admiral and Eric in the distance were all stunned. Especially those sailors on the Marine fleet. When they saw the 29 pirate ships pressing over like black clouds, they had only one thought in their minds. It's over. Plop plop plop. Almost without needing to be reminded, when watching those pirate ships crashing down on the warships from the sky, the smart sailors had already jumped into the sea one by one. Boom, boom. A few seconds later, there was a violent roar on the sea hundreds of meters ahead. Almost all the 23 warships that were originally linked by iron chains were destroyed. Only the medium-sized warship was still floating on the sea because of the protection of Eric's sickle fruit. But even so, it still makes those who see this scene feel numb. In particular, the man named Blackbeard seemed to have no intention of letting go of the medium-sized warship. He actually took his pirate ship and flew directly towards the medium-sized warship. And just when Blackbeard and the others were about to arrive above the medium-sized warship, a roar came from the sky in the distance. Blackbeard, you are seeking death. Everyone followed the roar that resounded through the sky. Boo hoo hoo. Soon, a figure with long white smoke in the distant sky flew towards Blackbeard and the others at high speed. After Captain Marine, who was standing at the Logue Town pier, saw the figure in the sky in the distance, his face suddenly showed joy and he exclaimed. It's Colonel Smoker here. Colonel Smoker. The Navy soldier standing next to him was a little confused at first, and then said in surprise as if he had thought of something. Is that the White Hunter, Colonel Smoker, who single-handedly destroyed a dozen pirate groups and captured hundreds of pirates? Yes, that's him. That iconic white smoke is the invincible Logia devil fruit. Ha 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 ha, we are saved. None of these pirates can escape. No, the same goes for that Marine who dared to fire at Logue Town. Don't be stupid, the one who fired the gun before was Marine Admiral Nelson, Rear Admiral. Quote. That's okay. Just when everyone at the pier seemed to have seen the savior and was talking about surprise, the people in the black group in the sky in the distance were also surprised. Mr. Teach, that guy can also fly. What is his ability? It looks like Logia demon fruit power. What? An invincible Logia user like Marine 3 Admiral? I didn't expect that there would be such a strong support. It seems that there is some trouble. Don't think too much, it doesn't matter whether he is Logia or not, our captain is invincible. Way ha 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 ha. At this time, Blackbeard in the sky naturally heard the voices of everyone within a 10-kilometer radius. The corners of Teach's mouth could not help but raise slightly. Instead of explaining anything to the black group members, Teach stood with his arms folded in the air and looked at Smoker, who was rushing towards him at a high speed. Smoker was really rude. After getting within a few dozen meters of Blackbeard, he waved his arms in the direction of Blackbeard without hesitation and shouted, "White Fist, woo woo woo." The next second, Smoker's two arms carrying white smoke hit Blackbeard. Blackbeard still had no intention of moving. He just tilted his head slightly and easily dodged Smoker's double fist attack. Then he calmly looked at Smoker in the distance and smiled. Thief, ha 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 ha. Is this the extent of Marine Nova's White Hunter Smoker? If only this was the case. That doesn't even qualify you to please me. Quote. Smoker, who had just flown closer, turned pale when he heard this and shouted, "Just a pirate, don't be too arrogant." As he spoke, he shook his arms, and the two fists that Blackbeard had dodged turned around in the air and shot towards Blackbeard's back at high speed. Useless. Blackbeard turned to one side again and easily dodged again. Hateful. Smoker didn't expect that the moves that were very useful in the past would have no effect at all today, but he was still confident at the moment because he also had a killer move that he didn't use. Gulu gulu gulu. Within a few breaths, the white smoke around Smoker surged up, and then turned into a dozen white arms and rushed towards Blackbeard quickly, with a proud smile on his face. Now I see you are hiding like this. White snake dances. Oiler, oiler, oiler. Quote, hoo hoo hoo. The next second, white fist shadows filled the sky and blasted towards Blackbeard. It's useless, it's useless, it's useless, it's useless. As Blackbeard's calm and mocking voice sounded, his fist shadow seemed to pass through Blackbeard's body, but it had no effect. Seeing this scene, Smoker felt a little numb, and immediately roared. Impossible, absolutely impossible. You are in your 30s, and you are the only one worthy of being called a Marine rising star. Shave. The corners of Blackbeard's mouth rose. Aha. The next moment, he directly appeared in front of Smoker across a distance of tens of meters. Under the latter's horrified eyes, he hit Smoker's stomach with a fist that was like purple-black water. At the same time, Blackbeard's voice rang in his ears. Smoker, didn't your Zephyr teacher tell you that you are too dependent on devil fruit? Weak, too weak. Quote, boom, call out. Smoker's whole body was hit by Blackbeard's punch and he spat out a mouthful of blood accompanied by stomach acid. His body turned into a white stream of light and directly hit the body of the fat pig Nelson, Rear Admiral, who was watching the show below. Boom. Then the huge force directly blasted the two of them into the bottom of the deck, causing the medium-sized warship to become cracked. Eric's face turned pale as he stood on the deck. He never thought that the invincible Logia Devil Fruit ability would be defeated in an instant. And it's obvious that the man named Blackbeard didn't try his best at all. How could such a monster appear in East Blue? Not only was Eric shocked, but the happy civilians and Marines at the Logue Town port in the distance now had smiles frozen on their faces. The fight between Blackbeard and Smoker seemed long, but in fact it only lasted a minute or two, and Smoker was all attacking. Even in the eyes of those watching the battle from a distance, Smoker was blown down from the sky in just one face-to-face encounter, and even the last Marine Fleet warship was knocked to the point of collapse. At this point, Marine Admiral Nelson, Rear Admiral's 23 warships were all destroyed. Gudong gudong gudong. The Logue town residents and Marines who saw this scene from behind were swallowing their saliva in horror, fearing that the big pirate named Blackbeard would raise his hand and kill them too. Blackbeard's sight at this moment was still covering a 10-kilometer radius, so he naturally felt their emotions. This made him sigh inwardly. This is the tragedy of ordinary people in this world. Life and death are in the hands of others. It can only be a knife for others and a fish for meat. Even Marine will become the lackey of the celestial dragons. Thinking of this, his belief became stronger. Set a small goal first, to be the strongest in the world. Just as Blackbeard was thinking about this, he suddenly raised his brows, because what he saw and heard was a sense of fanaticism and admiration in the emotions of these frightened people. He subconsciously turned his head and saw a green-haired man with a cockhead staring at him with admiration. After seeing himself looking away, the green cockhead immediately waved excitedly and said, "Master Teach, I am your fan. Can you please let me join the Blackbeard pirates? I am also an Esper and my strength is not weak. Please, Master Teach." Quote, at this time, the green-feathered chicken male's voice was undoubtedly extremely abrupt, causing everyone standing not far from him to subconsciously turn their heads to look at him. Hey, isn't that the gang leader Bartolomeo from the backstreets? Is this guy looking for death? He wants to provoke such a big pirate at this time. Don't hold me back even if you want to die. Crazy, this guy is a lunatic. Do you really think people will like him? It's ridiculous. Bartolomeo obviously heard the discussions of those around him. But he didn't bother to pay attention at the moment. Instead, he stared at Blackbeard in the sky in the distance, with nervousness written on his face. Even the heartbeat is accelerating rapidly. It was the first time he saw a man with such courage. Whether it was using Conqueror's hockey at the port to kill 3,000 pirates in an instant, or destroying more than 20 Marine warships with just one hand, or even killing the rising Marine star Smoker, who was known as the invincible Logia, with one punch, he felt a kind of fanatical admiration. Of course, what he really admired was that this man could ignore the shells fired by the Marines just now, but he still used his ability to help stop the civilians of Logue Town behind. There is no doubt that a man with this kind of courage is worth following. But it's one thing to want to follow someone, but it's another thing if others don't like you. He had seen it all before. None of this man's partners were simple. Just when Bartolomeo was thinking wildly, he heard Blackbeard laughing in the distance. Thief, ha 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 ha. Interesting, so interesting. Want to get on my boat? Then you have to be prepared to be the enemy of the world. Do you have this awareness? Quote, after hearing Blackbeard's words, no matter how slow Bartolomeo was, he understood what Blackbeard meant. What's more, how could he be such a slow person when he could secure his position as the gangster's boss in Logue Town? Bartolomeo immediately shouted excitedly, "Of course it is. Where Lord Blackbeard's sword points, I, Bartolomeo, will lead the charge." Ha 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 ha. Blackbeard laughed. Unexpectedly, there was an unexpected gain. He raised his hand, pointed at Bartolomeo in the distance, grabbed the void and said with a smile, "In that case, let's do it." Buzz. The next moment, Bartolomeo, who was still standing on the big stone pier, felt his body fly uncontrollably into the air, flying directly to Blackbeard over a distance of more than 100 meters. Immediately under the latter's excited look, Blackbeard raised his hand and patted Bartolomeo's shoulder and said with a smile, "Remember, Lousy's name is Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach. In this era of violence, we, the Blackbeard Pirates, will be the leaders of the era. Bartolomeo, welcome to join us." Quote, ha 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 ha, don't worry, Captain, I will protect the Blackbeard Pirates. Bartolomeo suddenly waved his hands excitedly. Very good. Just have this momentum. Go down and meet your mates. Quote, as he spoke, Blackbeard raised his hand and Bartolomeo's body floated to the Saberoo below. At this moment, Blackbeard suddenly noticed a small boat rowing quickly towards the distance. How could I let you escape? Blackbeard grinned, raised his hand and shook the boat in the distance. Universal pull. Buzz. The next moment, a terrifying suction force burst out directly from Blackbeard's palm. Crash. Eric, who was rowing rapidly on the sea in the distance, suddenly felt a terrible suction coming from behind him, and then he saw his body instantly leaving the wooden boat and flying backwards towards the sky behind him. What is going on? Just as Eric was yelling curses, he suddenly felt his neck being pinched by someone's hand. This immediately made him break out in a cold sweat. When Eric turned his head with difficulty to look at the man behind him, the figure of the tall hockey suddenly fell into his eyes. In just a moment, Eric's fear reached its peak, and he immediately smiled flatteringly. "Well, Lord Blackbeard, this is none of my business. Please let me go. I'm just a nobody. Go to hell, I'll take your head, Eric. Ha 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 ha." Quote. After speaking, Eric's expression suddenly turned into a ferocious laugh. He put the fingers of his hands together like sword fingers and waved wildly at Blackbeard a few times. But the next second, the ferocity and pride on Eric's face suddenly froze. Then he waved a few more times without giving up, but still no wind blade was shot out. This suddenly caused cold sweat to break out on his forehead, a stream of snot flowed out of his nostrils, and he murmured with a look of fear and disbelief. "What happened? My ability has failed. How could it be possible?" Quote. Blackbeard laughed when he saw this, but he did not hesitate to raise his casserole-sized fist and hit Eric hard on the head. "Go to hell and ask the king of hell." Boom. After a muffled sound, Eric rolled his eyes and fainted with blood on his face. Bang. Immediately, Blackbeard threw Eric's body on the deck and looked at the people below. "Use sea stone to tie this guy's body. His ability is not bad, maybe it will be useful." Upon hearing this, everyone except Bartolomeo immediately understood what Blackbeard meant. Then Ikaram quickly took out chains and sea stone handcuffs and tied up Eric, who was full of broken teeth. After that, Blackbeard flew the Saberoo back to the port again. Even if his physical strength had improved a lot after the previous battle and flying, he still couldn't withstand such consumption. After all, his power is dark fruit, not lion fruit. After returning to the port, after moving the supplies and more than 3 billion belly from the pirate ship in the original port to the Saberoo, Blackbeard and the others left Logue Town. Many civilians at the port were relieved to see this scene. Shortly after Blackbeard left, Marineford, Sengoku's roars kept coming from the marshal's office. "What did you say? Blackbeard went to Logue Town. Did he attack Logue Town? Oh, was that Nelson bombarding Logue Town? That's fine. Smoker was killed by Blackbeard's punch. This idiot only knew how to rely on his Logia devil fruit. Blackbeard didn't kill him. That's okay. What about the damage to Logue Town? Blackbeard protected Logue Town from being bombarded. That's okay. What? All 23 of that idiot Nelson's warships were destroyed. He himself was smashed to death. What a naturally evil pirate Blackbeard. Garp. Crane Vice Admiral. Iokiji Admiral. The next day. News of the world headlines. Shock. It was not pirates who bombarded the port of Logue Town, but the Marine fleet. Ridiculous, the one protecting Logue Town is actually a pirate and not a Marine. Shock. Whitebeard, captain of the Zero Pirates Division, Blackbeard appeared in East Blue Logue Town, destroying 23 Marine warships by one person, and instantly killed the Logia ability user Marine Rising Star White Hunter Smoker. What a born evil pirate Blackbeard. Naval headquarters will once again increase the bounty on Blackbeard. Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach will definitely have a place in this year's Pirate Supernova. After one day, Cocoa West Village Sea Area. Ha 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 ha, Captain, your bounty has indeed increased again. 250 million Baileys, a direct increase of 100 million. You are indeed Captain Teach. Oka, I'm sorry, I'm also offering a reward. 18 million, not bad, way ha 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 ha. I should have taken action too. Is there even a reward for Poison Q? It's not just Poison Q, there's a reward for Zhuang Zhuang. Do Zhuang Zhuang and I have one too? How many? Poison Q has a bounty of 13 million, and Zhuang Zhuang has a bounty of 500 belly. Exalulu. Zhuang Zhuang expresses strong dissatisfaction. Ha 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 ha. Blackbeard, who was practicing controlling the 7-star sword and the strange energy within the captain's cabin, was a little scratched by the crowd outside. Fortunately, he took a break and went out to chat and relax with everyone. Squeak. After seeing Blackbeard come out, Nami said nervously, "Captain, we still have half a day's sail from Cocoa West Village. We have to be careful during this time. If any Murlocs discover our ship, they are likely to come from underwater and destroy it." Quote. Is that so? Blackbeard pondered for 2 seconds and then said directly, Then we'll go over from the air and catch them off guard. Otherwise, if these fishmen really escape into the sea, even I won't be able to do anything about it. It is still very troublesome for fishmen to enter the sea. Quote. Okay, just listen to the captain. Nami was also extremely excited at this time. After knowing the strength of Blackbeard and his group, she has greater certainty and confidence in destroying Arlong. She felt relieved when she thought that everyone in Cocoa West Village could be rescued. However, Nami was still feeling quite uneasy at this time. After all, Arlong is a nightmare that has been hanging over her head for more than 10 years, and it is not easy to get rid of it. The other members of the Black group also knew what Arlong and the other Murlocs had done to Nami's hometown, so they were all filled with righteous indignation. Nami-chan, don't worry, we will definitely help you defeat all those fish men. Ha 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 ha, when the time comes, I will twist off that Arlong's head to pay homage to the humans they slaughtered. Don't worry Nami, we can solve it without the captain taking action this time. Feeling the sincere concern from everyone, Nami was still a lot touched at this time. After all, she had not regarded these people as companions before. After all, she still hates pirates. If Blackbeard's conditions hadn't been too tempting to her, she might not have agreed. It can only be said that Nami's heart is complicated at this time. At this moment, Blackbeard on the side smiled and said, in that case, let's set off directly. Speed up to Cocoa West Village, and you can still have dinner after finishing the group of fishmen. Guide all things. Quote. Buzz. As Blackbeard finished speaking, a disc with a diameter of 2 to 3 meters emitting black mist condensed from behind him, and immediately his figure rose into the sky. Crash. The next second, the Sabaru under the feet of everyone in the Black group shook and left the sea and flew directly in the direction pointed by Nami. With Blackbeard's gravitational acceleration, the entire pirate ship's speed increased several times. In less than 3 hours, they had arrived above Kokoyasi village. Down, below is the Arlong domain, Captain. Above the sky, Nami looked down with a telescope, her voice trembling. Good. Blackbeard grinned and said, boys, prepare to fight. Revenge our Nami. Revenge for Nami. Revenge for Nami. Revenge for Nami. Exalulu. Everyone on the Sabaru roared excitedly. Call out. Immediately afterwards, the Sabaru quickly fell towards the Arlong field below. After a few seconds, boom, in front of the Arlong field, suddenly a pirate ship descended from the sky and crossed the swimming pool. The huge movement and splashing of water directly frightened the leisurely fish people. What's the situation? Who is it? Who doesn't have the guts to dare to come to our Arlong domain to cause trouble? Kill them all. Wait a minute, look at the pirate flag on that golden flag. Why does it look familiar? A flag with a gold background, a white skull with a black beard. Hiss, could it be? The Blackbeard pirates who made a big fuss in Logue Town yesterday. Buzz. While all the Murlocs still had a look of horror on their faces, a terrifying conqueror's hockey swept over the entire place instantly. Plop, plop, plop. For a while, many fishmen still had expressions of fear and shock on their faces, and they rolled their eyes and passed out. In the Arlong domain, the only fishmen who were not unconscious yet looked very ugly at this time, with large beads of cold sweat breaking out on their foreheads. These Murlocs are Arlong, Kruby, Xiaoba, Ju and Jincheng. Seeing this, Blackbeard said nothing more, just waved his hand and said, go, pick an opponent and kill them. Leave Arlong to me. Way ha 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 ha. Badgers roared excitedly, stepped on Moonwalk and rushed directly towards the extremely angry Arlong. I'll do that shark. Fan Oka directly hung the sniper rifle behind his back, and also rushed forward on Moonwalk. Hey ha ha ha, then I'll go kill that octopus. Bartomeo also jumped down excitedly. Leave that pouty lip to me. Shave it. Vivi gave a sweet shout, and in a flash, she appeared directly in front of Ju and kicked him away mercilessly, directly kicking off the battle. The last one left, Duque lazily raised his hand and said with a smile. Nami, you don't have to move, just leave it to me. Let's go Zhuangzhuang. After saying that, he turned over and lay on his strong back. Exalulu. Zhuangzhuang pretended to take a few breaths with difficulty, and then directly unfolded his wings under Nami's shocked eyes, flew up and quickly joined the battle. There is nothing to describe the course of the battle. Arlong's group is too weak for the current Blackbeard pirate group, too weak to be worth mentioning. The fight was over in a minute or two. This made Nami, who was standing on the bow of the boat with Blackbeard, a little stunned. The Arlong pirates, who had been causing harm to their Cocoa West village for more than 10 years and claimed to be no match for even the Marine Rear Admiral, were destroyed so easily. It's so ridiculous and ironic. Because of the Arlong group, how many villages in the sea around Kokoyasi village were massacred and destroyed. Just when Nami covered her mouth and cried in disbelief, she felt a big hand pressing on her head, and the heroic voice of her captain came to her ears. Nami, this world has always been like this. The weak eat the strong, the fittest survive. Although Arlong was wiped out today, it is very likely that other pirates will come to do evil tomorrow. You know, East Blue is already the weakest sea area. Even though Garp often comes back from vacation to eliminate pirates, there is still such darkness as Arlong and his gang. In this twisted, chaotic, and cruel era of great pirates, the only way to protect your family is to be strong yourself. Relying on the rules and laws of the world government will not work. Quote. Having said this, Blackbeard stretched out his hand to her and said with a smile. The so-called rules are for those who cannot survive without following the rules. Let's go, Nami. Come with me to the end of the law. Quote. Nami was shocked when she heard this. She looked at her friends below who were waving to her. She immediately stopped hesitating and stretched out her small white hand and placed it on Blackbeard's big hand. After Arlong and his gang were eliminated, Blackbeard did not kill Arlong immediately. Instead, he used the 7-star sword's magical control ability. This ability seems to have mutated after being blessed by Sephiroth's awakened blessing fruit, resulting in the ability to control other people's thoughts. But there are limits to this ability. The user can only control beings weaker than themselves. Therefore, it is very easy for Blackbeard to use it to control Arlong. After taking control of Arlong, Blackbeard asked about the location of the protective umbrella that allowed him to roam this sea area. That's Colonel Mouse's marine base. To cut the weeds, we must remove the roots. Since he decided to help Nami solve the trouble in Cocoa West Village, he would not leave any hidden dangers. If Luffy did what he did in the original plot and let the Mouse Colonel go, the fate of Coco Nishi Village would only become worse. After learning this information, Blackbeard directly handed Arlong, whose hands and feet had been broken by badgers, to the villagers of Kokoyasi Village. What follows is a bloody killing. Kokoyasi Village was originally a very large village, with a population of 6,000 to 7,000 at its peak. Over the years, 1,000 or 2,000 people have died at the hands of Arlong and the others. Therefore, even if it was the naive Xiao Hachi in the original plot, even if he was friends with Pluton Rayleigh, Blackbeard would not let him go. He is not qualified to let him go for the people of Kokoyasi Village. So it was natural that Xiaoba, like Arlong and the others, were directly beaten to death by the angry villagers of Kokoyasi Village. As for the other Murlocs who were stunned by Blackbeard, they were luckier. They did not suffer so much and were killed by Nami and the villagers of Cocoa West Village while they were unconscious. Blackbeard forced himself to watch the entire scene. Although this made him, who was once a good young man in the 21st century, feel extremely uncomfortable. But he kept telling himself in his heart that this is a world where the jungle prevails. If you don't kill someone, they will kill you. Just like what Arlong and the others did to Cocoa West Village. What's more, Arlong and the others not only slashed the Kokoyasi village, but the villages on the surrounding islands were also persecuted by Arlong and the others. Just to avoid spreading the influence to the world government for the time being, Blackbeard did not let the villagers of Cocoa West Village notify others. But in a few days, someone should find out that Arlong's heads were hanging on the shoreline. After some bloody killings, the villagers of Kokoyasi Village also needed to vent. So that night the whole village started a big banquet directly. It was also because they successfully solved a mountain that was weighing on them this time that all the villagers in Kokoyasi Village became extremely drunk on the night of the banquet. Even the calm Aegean who raised Nami and her sister Nokigao from childhood is like this. When the party reached late at night and almost everyone was asleep, Blackbeard found Nami and Poison Q. Under the latter's confused look, Blackbeard went straight to the point. Solving Arlong is not enough. When I controlled Arlong before, I asked him about the protective umbrella that allowed him to do evil in East Blue for so long without being cleared by Vice Admiral Garp. And his protective umbrella is the Mouse Colonel in the Marine base not far from here. Quote, "It's him." When Nami heard this, her drunkenness instantly sobered up, and anger filled her eyes again. Today Nami also killed a few Murlocs under Blackbeard's instigation. As the navigator of his Blackbeard pirates, Teach will not allow her to remain as weak and timid as in the original plot. It is not advisable to place all your hopes on luck and cleverness. In the future, he will also find ways to improve Nami's strength. Yes, didn't you say before that a Marine Rear Admiral came here to destroy Arlong? He also leaked the information to Arlong first. Blackbeard shrugged and said, this allowed Arlong to directly destroy his ship in the open sea. That Marine Rear Admiral is still an Esper. All the information has been leaked, and if you fall into the sea, you will be at the mercy of Arlong and the others. Otherwise, that Marine Rear Admiral will definitely be able to help you deal with Arlong's group that time. There are still good people in Marine. Quote, Nami suddenly fell silent after hearing this. After a while, she gritted her teeth and said, Teach, can you hand over that Mouse Colonel to me in a moment? When Blackbeard heard this, a smile appeared on his lips. He raised his hand and rubbed Nami's head and said with a smile, of course that's no problem, otherwise what do you think I'm doing by waking up Poison Q? Ha 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 ha. Poison Q, I am your flirting tool, right? After the explanation, Blackbeard directly asked Poison Q to sit on a wooden board, and Nami sat on Zhuang's back, and then the three of them flew directly away from Cocoa West Village. More than an hour later, they arrived at the Marine base where Colonel Mouse was. Blackbeard directly used the power from the 7-star sword mixed with his own observation hockey to cover the Marine base, and easily locked the location of Colonel Mouse. Because the power of the 7-star sword is mixed in, Blackbeard's sight color has the meaning of being able to see the sinfulness of others. People like Colonel Mouse are the kind of people who are extremely red in color based on what they see and hear. It's as eye-catching as a beacon in the darkness. Almost identical to him were the dozens of Marines who lived around Colonel Mouse. They are all a group of red monsters. Through this special sense of knowledge, Blackbeard can directly detect their evil deeds against the surrounding villages. This special observation hockey is a bit like Red Earl's special observation hockey that can directly read other people's memories. It's even more special than the Red Earl's. Blackbeard thought that if he used this special observation hockey to swipe it on Mariajoy, everyone would probably see blood red in the observation hockey. With these thoughts in mind, Blackbeard did not move slowly and directly let Poison Q use his disease fruit to easily knock these people into unconsciousness. Then he took Nami directly to Colonel Mouse's room. There was no delay. After Blackbeard read the memory of Colonel Mouse, Nami directly killed Colonel Mouse with a knife. Naturally, there was a lot of looting afterwards, and he directly took away the 1 billion belly hidden wealth that Colonel Mouse had hidden. As for the red-named Marine soldiers, before leaving, Blackbeard gave Poison Q a look, and the latter immediately understood and let these people die in their sleep. If he didn't want to cause too much impact and had follow-up plans, Blackbeard wouldn't mind making a big deal. Forget it now, after all, he still has to take over the Baroque studio, so it is not appropriate to attract attention from other places to him for the time being. After 2 days of repairs in Cocoa West Village, Blackbeard and the others set off directly after helping Nami transplant the orange trees. It is worth mentioning that Blackbeard used the ability of the 7-star sword to control the Sea King's Manatee Moo, the royal boat of Arlong's group. With this guy pulling the boat, sailing will be more convenient in the future, and Blackbeard will not need to take action unless necessary. After the Manatee Moo joined, Zhuang had a new partner. He always lay on the bow of the boat and chatted with Moo. One day after leaving the waters of Cocoa West Village, Carmen suddenly found Blackbeard, much to the latter's confusion. I said, Captain Teach, did you forget someone? Carmen said, dumbfounded. There is a demon fruit power locked up on our lower deck that has been hungry for 3 days. Didn't you say it would be useful to capture him before? Snapped. Blackbeard raised his hand and slapped his forehead and said with a smile. I almost forgot about it. Just when he wanted to say something, Nami's voice sounded outside. Teach, the village of Exeluobu is just ahead. You asked me to remind you before. Is there something important? Hearing this, Blackbeard grinned at Carmen and said, okay, that guy's role is here. I'll grab a partner in a moment, and you'll know his role by then. Quote. Carmen's pretty face was full of astonishment. Catch a partner. Like us. Thief, ha 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 ha. Blackbeard went out laughing. It's okay if you understand it this way. Labor and management are pirates. Isn't it normal to grab your partners and board the ship? Buzz. The next second, a huge disc glowing with black energy appeared behind him, like a round light behind a god. Immediately, Blackbeard rose into the sky and flew directly towards Exeluobu village, and at the same time, his voice rang out. Nami, don't stop the boat. I'm going to grab a friend and I'll catch up with you in a minute. Hearing this, not only Nami, but also Badgers, Vanoka and Bartomeo who were training were full of questions. Can my partner still use the catcher? Then they thought of Nami and Carmen, and her two useless apprentices. That's okay. After the news spread, Blackbeard quickly located the location of the partner he wanted to capture this time, Beiji Crow. Yes, he is very optimistic about this guy. He is obviously a guy with extremely strong IQ and physical talent, but his vision is limited by East Blue. He believes that for this kind of guy, as long as he is given a broader stage, his talents will be fully revealed. After all, he relied on his personal talent to figure out the spoon move that was stronger than the six-style shave. Although it has not been fully developed, it can basically be said that he did not take the right path and his body was too weak. With a little guidance, Crow will definitely be able to soar into the sky. Eric's devil fruit was specially prepared for him. Shoo shoo shoo. A few minutes later, Blackbeard crossed half of Syllab village and arrived directly above Kaya's house. Ignoring the stunned Usopp standing on the tree trunk, Blackbeard laughed directly at the big villa below. Bazi Keluo, get out of here lousy. If you have this scheming and talent, instead of becoming a pirate and making a name for yourself, what's the point of staying here as a housekeeper trying to steal someone else's little girl's property? Lousy likes you. You must get on my boat today. Thief, ha 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 ha. Blackbeard's voice and laughter directly exploded in this peaceful small village in the corner of East Blue, immediately shocking countless villagers. Usopp was so frightened that he fell from the tree. Kaya, the girl by the window, also looked pale. Only the butler Melly and Beiji Keluo, who were sitting in the living room, looked solemn. Call. A few seconds later, Crow took a deep breath, smiled at Mary who was a little wary and said, Mary, let me go out and see who is trying to taint my innocence out of thin air. Okay, Chloe, feel free to go, Melly said with a smile. As he spoke, he had already raised his hand to hold the musket behind his back. He was relieved when he saw that Crow just walked out with two long black bags from a cabinet in the hall. Immediately, Melly's expression changed, and he rushed upstairs to the door of Kaya's room and said in a deep voice, Miss Kaya, no matter what happens next, don't come out. If I haven't come up after an hour, or if I don't come to you in person, you must not open the door. Just leave through the window with Usopp. Miss Kaya, do you understand what I mean? Quote. Kaya's expression changed after hearing this. Mary, what happened? Call, Melly said in a deep voice. Miss Kaya, did you hear that just now? That Crow is probably a pirate. This name sounded familiar to me before. Beiji Keluo. That's a big pirate with a bounty of 16 million Baileys. This was more than a year ago. No matter why someone is looking for him, you must listen to me, do you understand? Quote. Kaya's face was full of disbelief, but based on her trust in Melly, who had raised her since childhood, she immediately nodded heavily and said, I know Melly. At this moment, Usopp's voice came over and said, Mr. Melee, an hour is too long. After 5 minutes, if there is no movement, I will immediately take Kaya to hide. I just saw a flying weirdo. No, he is a strong man who can fly. Those are the words he said while flying in the sky. Quote. After hearing this, Melly looked solemn and said, Okay, that's it. Please, Usopp-kun. After saying that, Melly immediately came to the living room on the second floor, walked to the balcony and looked out carefully. At this time, he happened to see the scene where Crow put on the cat claw gloves. Tisk tisk tisk. With 10 special cat claw swords in his hands, Crow easily chopped up the 2 long black bags. He looked at the tall hockey man standing opposite and said indifferently, I don't care who you are, you disrupted my plan. You can't leave alive today. Sure enough, it was him. Melly's face turned a little pale, and there was a look of fear in his eyes. But soon, the panic on his face turned into weirdness. Because the tall hockey man opposite looked Crow up and down and nodded with satisfaction. This momentum is very good. Lousy's partner, if he doesn't even have this spirit, he is not worthy of being my Blackbeard's partner. Want to kill me? Come on then. Use your espada and see if you can do me some damage. Ha 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 ha. Crow, who was pushing up his glasses with his wrist, froze when he heard this, and then looked at Blackbeard, who was laughing in the distance, and his expression gradually solidified. Before he could make any move, Blackbeard in front suddenly burst out with a terrifying momentum. This caused Crow, who had shown a fierce look before, to become unsteady and fall to his knees on the ground. This sudden scene immediately stunned Mary upstairs. Blackbeard, who is this man? How could he make the ferocious Beiji Keluo kneel down just by meeting him? Blackbeard was also happy when he saw this scene. It seems that his conqueror's haki has grown recently, which makes him very satisfied. Chloe, I still like your unruly look before. Please recover. Melly. Poof. Do you think I don't want to? After hearing Blackbeard's teasing, Crow was roaring in his heart. My legs are so weak now that I can't even stand up. Despite this, Crow still gritted his teeth, raised his head with difficulty and looked at Blackbeard in front of him and said, You're Blackbeard, the Blackbeard who single-handedly destroyed Marine Admiral Nelson and Rear Admiral 23 warships. The Blackbeard who killed the Marine Nova White Hunter Smoker with Logia Demon Fruit Power with one punch. The captain of the Zero Squadron under 4 Emperors Whitebeard, Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach, who has a bounty of 250 million Baileys on his head from the world government. Quote. Blackbeard chuckled. As expected of Beiji Keluo. You can collect so much information in such a small mountain village. It seems that you have not completely severed ties with your fellow pirates, you understand them in such detail. Although the prefix is a bit longer, the Blackbeard you are talking about is me. Now that you understand, come with me. Again, with such talent and brains, what's the point of being a butler here instead of becoming a pirate and becoming famous? It won't be long before the times run wild, and those who are unprepared will eventually be eliminated by the times. This includes you, Beiji Keluo. Come with me, Chloe. Come aboard my Blackbeard ship and come with me to turn the world upside down. Quote. Crow, who originally had a gloomy expression, trembled after hearing Blackbeard's words, and his expression changed involuntarily. With his intelligence, he can actually detect it somewhat. But the information he had access to was too little. He lives in a corner, making it impossible for him to come into contact with this turbulent era. Now that he had such an opportunity, coupled with the fact that the man with a bounty of 250 million belly came to personally invite him, his heart, which had been silent for a long time, really became active again. After a few seconds of silence, Crow stood up with difficulty and sat on the ground. He looked up at Blackbeard and said with a glint in his eyes, I want to know if the aura you had just now is the legendary Conqueror's haki that only 1 in a million people can have. Oh, you actually know Conqueror's haki? Blackbeard looked at him in surprise. Well, I once met a guy named Nagli when I was a kid, and he also used Conqueror's haki. Blackbeard understood that there were only a few people in East Blue who could own Conqueror's haki. He had also seen this old man in the previous life plot, and he nodded immediately. That's right, what I have is Conqueror's haki. There is nothing unusual about this. Those who possess Conqueror's haki are like Crucian carp crossing the river in the New World. It is just the threshold for a strong person to become a top master. If you follow me, you may not have the opportunity to realize this domineering spirit in the future. How? Quote. When Crow heard this, his body shook again, with a fanatical light in his eyes. He licked the corners of his mouth, looked at Blackbeard and laughed. Ha 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 ha. Since a big shot like you has come to personally invite me, if I don't agree, I will be asking for trouble. Good. I'll just take a walk with you. See how you can turn the world upside down. Quote. Blackbeard laughed with satisfaction. You won't regret your decision today. I will give you a surprise when you get on the boat. After saying that, Blackbeard waved his hand and jumped into the air. With astonishment, Crow flew towards the outside of Exeluobu village. Crow, who was in midair, also saw Mary on the second floor, as well as nervous Kaya and Usopp. Immediately, he couldn't help but smile with relief, bowed to Mary and Kaya below, and never looked back. He will never come back to this place. After returning to the Sabaru, Blackbeard introduced the members of the Black Group to Crow. Everyone was also very curious about Crow, whom Blackbeard personally invited. After some understanding, they all roughly understood Crow's experience. It's just that Badgers and others were quite dissatisfied with Blackbeard personally inviting such a guy. Crow didn't care about this, but instead discussed the training of Marine 6 styles with Blackbeard. Hearing them discussing cultivation, Badgers and the others came together again. When they learned that Crow had figured out an expanded move of Marine 6 styles without anyone's guidance, they immediately asked Badgers, Oka, Vivi and Bartolomeo, who had practiced Marine. The people at 6 styles were shocked. They practiced according to the training manual given by their captain, and the captain personally taught them. It was very difficult to learn. How could this guy figure out that kind of move by himself? I don't really believe it. Chloe, can you let me see it? Badgers was the first to express his dissatisfaction. Crow turned to look at Blackbeard. After seeing the latter nodding, he pushed up his glasses and said, I don't control this move very well. Let's find an uninhabited island later and let's try to compare. Otherwise, it will be bad if we destroy the ship. Also, Badgers agrees. Then Crow became addicted to the 6-style training book left by Blackbeard. It wasn't until evening that they found an uninhabited island. There was no ink on Crow's side, so he took Espada directly and started sparring with Badgers under the watch of everyone in the Black Group. Spoon. Aha! Almost in an instant, Crow had disappeared. This shocked Badgers and others. Prick, prick, prick. Immediately afterwards, they saw more than a dozen sword marks left on the surrounding rocks and ground every few seconds, directly cutting the rock ground and causing gravel to fly. If they were in a crowded place, they could not imagine how much damage it would cause. Iron body. But Badger's practice these days is not a vegetarian. It is obvious that his strength is much stronger than Crow. Dang dang dang. Just as everyone thought, no matter how Crow attacked Badgers, he could only shed sparks on him. Until Crow stopped. Spoon, in shock, looked at Badgers and said, Is this the iron body from Marine 6 styles? That's right. Badgers grinned and said, Although your attack can't hurt me, it is indeed a very powerful move. If you can figure it out on your own, it is indeed as the captain said. You are very talented in practicing physical skills, but your body is still too weak. Quote, everyone agreed. Crow was thoughtful, then he seemed to have thought of something, looked at Badgers and smiled. Come again. Badgers was stunned, but he was also a fighting maniac, so he immediately grinned and said, Come. Chapter 41. Spoon. Crow glanced at Badgers in the distance and used his killing move again without hesitation. Badgers' eyes narrowed. He also didn't want to use Iron Body to kill the opponent. It would be too useless to win. You must know that he has been taught by the captain for a long time before he achieved his current strength. In terms of physical strength, he is completely superior to Crow, but his speed is his shortcoming. As a fighting maniac, Badgers naturally would not give in so easily. He wanted to seize an opportunity to completely defeat Crow. Just one punch is enough. Chi chi chi. Clang, clang, clang. However, Crow's spoon was still wreaking havoc, and sparks shot out of Badger's body. Crow's speed was getting faster and faster, but there was still no chance for Badgers to touch the hem of his clothes. Blackbeard, who was watching the battle from a distance, suddenly raised his eyebrows and showed a smile. This guy Crow is a bit interesting. Vivi and the others were a little confused when they heard this. Fan Oka on the side suddenly said with some uncertainty. Captain, is Crow using Badgers to practice? Nani. Practicing through Badgers. Real or fake? Badger's physical skills can be said to be the strongest among the Black Group except Blackbeard. It can be seen from the fact that he can easily kill the Ghost Agent and kill Arlong with one punch, not to mention that he has also learned the 6 styles of shaving, Iron Body and Finger Pistol. From this aspect, it can also be seen that Badger's talent for physical training is extremely strong. It just lacks in speed. To be honest, if Clomi, the little Kurami, were to be caught by Badgers, it would also be a matter of one punch. That's the problem. Badgers was able to finish Crow off with one punch, but he couldn't touch Crow. This is what Crow relies on. That's right, Blackbeard smiled. Speed is the key to victory or defeat for people at their level. Crow used his advantage well. Quote, hearing this, the little fanboy Bartolomeo on the side immediately praised excitedly. The only martial arts in the world that can't be broken is fast. Oh, as expected of Captain Teach, this sentence is so cool. Everyone else nodded thoughtfully. Vivi nodded and said, I have to say that Crow is indeed brave and careful, but he can't break Badger's defense at all, can he? Badger's iron body is enough to consume Crow to death. It is not obvious that he is wasting his energy by constantly attacking like this, and it is not in line with his title of 100 Strategies of Crow. Quote, oh, is that really true? Blackbeard raised his hand and pointed at the battlefield and said, you all know that Crow has not been able to master the spoon move before because he did not know the clear training method of the 6 moves. But after he got on the boat, he read the 6-style training manual I gave him. It was probably after reading the contents that he came up with the idea of using badgers to train himself. Please note that the attack range of Crow's spoon is rapidly shrinking and has even completely surrounded badgers. The attacks on badgers became more and more frequent and more precise. Quote, when everyone heard this, they immediately turned their heads to look, and their bodies were shocked at this sight. Sure enough, in the past, Crow's spoon would hit badgers more than 10 meters or even dozens of meters away, but now it has completely shrunk to a diameter of 3 meters around badgers. And the scope is still shrinking. Clang, clang, clang. There was another burst of sparks, and badgers also threw a few punches at the same time, but it still had no effect. Finger pistol. Shoo shoo shee. Puff puff. The subsequent finger pistol also failed again. Tisk. When Crow used badgers to fight back, he directly left 5 shallow wounds on his body. Although Badger's body is powerful, he has not yet mastered the 6 styles to the point where he can still attack when using the iron body. Crow took this opportunity to slightly injure Badgers. Badgers is hurt, Nami immediately exclaimed with sharp eyes. It's inevitable, Blackbeard said. It seems that I still underestimated Crow's talent. He should have completely mastered the spoon by now. If so, Badgers will suffer. At least until Crow's physical strength is exhausted, he will remain in a passive situation. Of course, it is not ruled out that Badgers voluntarily admits defeat. Quote, impossible, absolutely impossible. Poison Q shook his head. How can that muscular guy Badgers give up? What's more, he is better than Crow in terms of strength and physical fitness. Others nodded in agreement. That's not necessarily the case. Blackbeard smiled a little sinisterly. You have to understand that iron body cannot protect you everywhere. Nani. Everyone was stunned for a while. Before they could react, Crow's figure appeared on a boulder more than 30 meters away from Badgers. He pushed up his glasses with his wrist, pointed at Badgers in the distance with his cat paw, and laughed loudly. Hee ha ha ha. Badgers, I'm not afraid to tell you, I've got the spoon completely under my belt. I won this battle. Quote, don't be too arrogant, Crow. Badgers patted his chest and said proudly, even if your spoon is faster than mine, your physical strength cannot be stronger than mine. Even if you use me up, I can kill you. My iron body is invincible. At least for you now. Quote, oh, really? Let's wait and see. After Crow raised his hand to push up his glasses again, his hands dropped naturally again. Spoon, swish. The next moment, Crow's figure disappeared on the boulder again. At the same time, his voice sounded from all sides of Badgers. I'm not sure if iron body is invincible. But Badgers, at least your iron body isn't. Eyes, ears, nose, crotch, back door, every one of these places is the weakest part of the human body. Come on, Badgers, tell me. Can your iron body protect against these places? If you don't want me to stab these places with a knife, you have only one choice, and that is to admit defeat. Clang, clang, clang. Almost at the same time as Crow finished speaking, there were sparks rising near these 5 places around Badgers. This was clearly a warning from Crow. After hearing this, Badgers also shed a cold sweat on his forehead. Hiss. Everyone who was watching the battle couldn't help but gasp when they heard this. This guy Crow is really a scumbag. Ha 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 ha. How will Badgers choose? If he doesn't close his eyes, then Crow will basically win. If he closes his eyes, he will only become blind and there is no way he can defeat Crow. Ha ha ha, Captain, I finally understand why you went out of your way to invite this guy. It's really incredible, even Badgers is being manipulated by him. While everyone was joking, Badgers did not persist. After all, they were all crew members of the same ship, and it was impossible for them to fight to the death. Even if he continues to spend it hard, he will lose. Therefore, he could only sigh unwillingly. I give up. You are worthy of being called 100 Strategies Crow. It's not the wrong nickname. No wonder the captain values you so much. Aha! Crow's figure appeared in front of Badgers, took off his gloves, stretched them out to Badgers, sighed and shook his head. Winning in this way is just a struggle for me who is weak at this time. This trick will have no effect against a monster like the captain. This time it's a tie. Next time we fight, I will definitely beat you openly. Quote. Snapped. After hearing this, Badgers raised his hand and patted Crow's hand, grinning and saying, "Don't be too arrogant, I will definitely win next time." Way ha 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 ha. Crow couldn't help but smile brightly. He turned his head and looked at the people watching the game in the distance, feeling a little emotional. This team seems to be pretty good. At night, after everyone in the black group finished eating, Blackbeard looked at Crow and said, "Crow, Poison Q, come with me." After hearing this, everyone was a little curious. But when they saw Blackbeard walking towards the lower deck, they understood. So that ability was prepared for Crow. Looking at it this way, it seems that it is really suitable for Crow. Fanoka spoke thoughtfully. That ability, Nami was a little confused. Vivi said, "You probably haven't seen Teach's other ability. If you are curious, you can follow us and have a look. It may be cruel, but I'm afraid you won't be able to accept it." Quote. Hearing this, Nami, Carmen, Bartolomeo, Jose and Leo were all curious. When Vivi said this, they became more curious. "Captain Teach, can we follow over and take a look?" Bartolomeo always speaks his mind. Just like Vivi said, if you are really curious, come down. Blackbeard's voice came from below the deck. Ta 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 ta. After hearing this, several people stood up and followed Crow towards the bottom of the deck. Since the destruction of Arlong's gang, even Nami has gotten rid of her former naivety. She is a person who has experienced blood and fire and will not be easily scared. On the contrary, curiosity takes up a greater proportion. Crow was also curious. When they came below the cabin, they saw a man in a purple suit with seastone handcuffs. At this time, the guy had fallen into a coma. Yesterday, after letting Poison Q feed this guy his last meal, Blackbeard let Poison Q put this guy into a coma. After all, it was very merciful to take away his ability, give this guy a full meal, and let him die euthanasia. Snapped. Blackbeard walked directly to Eric, pinched his head and lifted him up. Buzz. The next moment, endless darkness spread from Blackbeard's feet, instantly covering the entire space. This made Nami and others who followed felt an inexplicable chill. "Poison Q, let's do it." Blackbeard's cold voice sounded. "Yes, Captain." Poison Q grinned, and saw that he pressed one hand on Eric's heart, and the lavender light lit up and sank into Eric's heart. This caused the originally comatose Eric's heart to stop beating completely. The darkness of the stealing god. Blackbeard didn't hesitate, and directly wrapped Eric's body with his ability, pulling the sickle fruit's ability out of his body. Then the darkness swallowed Eric directly and made him disappear. Then, under the curious eyes of everyone, Blackbeard raised his hand and pushed the colorless gas in his hand into Crow's chest, grinning and saying, "Paramecia, sickle fruit, this is your welcome gift for boarding the ship." What? Nami and the others had seen this happen before, and they immediately exclaimed. Even Crow was shocked. They just saw that scene. Devil Fruit's ability was extracted from the body of the man in the purple-haired suit. In other words, his own captain can actually extract the abilities of other ability users. What a terrible method this is. Before they could think more, Crow's surprised voice came to everyone's ears. "It's actually true. This devil fruit is like it was tailor-made for me. It suits me so well. Ha 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 ha, with this devil fruit, my attack power has at least doubled several times. It's unbelievable. Is this the secret treasure of the sea?" Seeing the calm crow being so excited, Nami and the others were convinced. His own captain can really extract the abilities of other ability users. Judging from the situation just now, in order to extract the abilities of other ability users, do you need to kill them first? No wonder Vivi just said it might be a little cruel. In fact, for people like Nami and Carmen who have seen blood and experienced killings, it basically has no impact. Especially after knowing that Eric was the mercenary who was originally planning to surround and kill them, this uncomfortable feeling disappeared. They quite agreed with their captain's words. Out to mix, sooner or later have to repay. Since you want to kill others, you must be prepared to be killed by others. The weak eat the strong, the fittest survive. This world has always been like this. Back on deck, after learning that Crow's strength had improved a lot, Badger was immediately envious. After all, who doesn't want the magical abilities of Devil Fruit? But Blackbeard had already told them that he would choose the fruits that are most suitable for them. It is undoubtedly the best choice for badgers to eat Zone or the Devil Fruit of the Zone Phantom species. If that doesn't work, I still want Paramecia, a fruit suitable for those with strong physical skills. Fan Oka also needs fruit abilities suitable for snipers. Therefore, they were not in a hurry. Both Badgers and Van Oka are in good spirits. What's more, they are currently learning hockey at the same time as the 6 styles, and they can't spare any time to develop Devil Fruit. This situation is the best now. Becoming stronger does not happen overnight. No matter who you are, you need to take it step by step. Except for cheating. After explaining Crow's matter, Blackbeard set his sights on Vivi. Vivi, you can start. Hearing this, Vivi's body trembled, and she looked at Blackbeard with hope and said, "Is there really no problem with Teach? All the preliminary work has been done." Blackbeard looked at her with a smile. "It's time to fulfill our agreement. Contact her and let me talk to her." Phew, Vivi let out a sigh of relief, and looked at each other excitedly with Ikaram, who then carefully took out a phone bug and dialed the number. Soon, a very charming voice came from the phone bug. "Miss Wednesday, it's me, Miss All Sunday. Oh, haha, Miss Wednesday, you haven't contacted me for a long time. I thought you had an accident. Do you have any important information if you contact me now?" "No, Miss All Sunday, someone wants to talk to you." Hearing the doubtful voice on the other side, Blackbeard took the phone directly, grinned under the doubtful eyes of everyone in the black group and said, "Hello, Nicole Robin, I have a lot of clues about historical texts. Are you interested in cooperating?" Chaka. The next second, Blackbeard's confident face showed a look of embarrassment. Robin on the other side seemed so frightened that he hung up the phone. "Vivi, Ikaram, Blackbeard, I'm embarrassed. Captain, are you too confident? Way ha 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 ha, what should I do now? I scared people away. What are you afraid of? It's just a Baroque studio. We can just kill it ourselves. It's ridiculous that a pirate wants to take over our Vivi's country. Don't worry Vivi, don't you still believe in the strength of our captain? It's just a Shichibukai, but Captain Teach can definitely control it. Just watch it, hee hee ha 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 ha." Hearing the comfort from the black group members, Vivi was a little bit dumbfounded. After following Blackbeard for so long, how could she not believe in her captain's strength? Just when she was about to explain, the phone rang again. Booloo booloo. Blackbeard didn't hesitate and answered the phone immediately. Soon a familiar charming voice came from over there. Hearing the sound, Blackbeard secretly breathed a sigh of relief, almost losing his dignity as the captain. "Sir, are you still here?" Robin's cautious voice came from the other side. Cough. Blackbeard coughed dryly. "Although I'm here, you have to give me an explanation. It's very embarrassing for me to hang up the phone without saying a word." Poof. Ha 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 ha. Hearing Blackbeard's words, the black group members around him couldn't help laughing again. This time even Vivi kept her mouth shut and was happy. Sir, your place seems to be very lively. Is it okay to make an existence like the historical text, which even the world government has to hide, open to the public like this?" Robin was a little stunned. Blackbeard said nonchalantly, "I am surrounded by my most trusted partners, so what can be the problem?" "Okay, let's get back to the topic, Ms. Robin. Since you called me back, it means you are very interested in what I said before." Quote. "Certainly." Robin looked solemnly and said, That's what I've been pursuing my whole life. Sir, please tell me the conditions. By the way, I don't even know your name yet, so how can we cooperate? Quote. Test me. Blackbeard raised his eyebrows. He had no intention of hiding it, so he immediately smiled and said, You should have heard of my name, Captain of the Blackbeard Pirates, Marshall D. Teach. What? Hearing Teach's words, Robin was shocked again. She never expected that the pirate supernova that had appeared recently would contact her. However, considering that the other party is the captain of 4 Emperors Whitebeard, it seems understandable why the other party knows his identity. After calming down for a while, Robin said with a wry smile, I really didn't expect that a little guy like me would attract the attention of the 4 Emperors. Tell me, Captain Teach, how do you want to cooperate? First of all, let me make it clear that you are only working with us, the Blackbeard Pirates, and have nothing to do with my father and the others. Blackbeard continued, As for how to cooperate, let's meet first and then discuss. Then how can I be sure, Mr. Teach, that you don't want to trick me, a weak woman, into meeting you, and then arrest me and hand me over to the world government? Robin spoke pitifully. Weak woman. Hey, if you, who are called the son of the devil, were a weak woman, there would be no strong men in the world. Blackbeard made a joke and then said with a solemn expression, Nico Robin, do you think you have the right to say no? If I hadn't made an agreement with Vivi and didn't want Alabasta to be too badly damaged, I could have flown over directly to find you. Don't doubt it, as long as I know your approximate location, it won't be difficult for me to find you. Quote. Robin was not so worried about Blackbeard's behavior of being polite before attacking. You must know that Vivi is on the other side. If the other party really wants to arrest you, you can make an appointment with yourself through Vivi, and then arrest you in one fell swoop. After all, the other party already knows his identity, so there is really no need to go to such trouble to catch him. So what is it for? Robin was thinking about this, but he quickly agreed. No problem. Then let's meet on that stone desert island not far from Whiskey Mountain, 3 days later. Miss Wednesday knows the island, just ask her to bring you over when the time comes. Quote. It's a deal. Blackbeard nodded. Chaka. After hanging up the phone, Blackbeard smiled at them and said, Done. Vivi also breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. Then she spoke again. Captain, if we want to go to the desert island near Whiskey Mountain, we must first enter the Grand Line. It just so happens that that place is very close to Twin Gorges. I just don't know how far away our current place is from the Grand Line. I don't know if we can reach it in 3 days. Quote. Aha. Blackbeard turned directly to look at Nami. The latter thought for a while and then nodded and said, It should be no problem. Even if you encounter an emergency, you can still use the captain's ability to speed up. If the weather is good, we might be able to arrive a day earlier. Quote. After hearing Nami's words, Blackbeard snapped his fingers and said with a smile, Okay, then have a good rest tonight and hit the road with all your strength tomorrow. Yes, Captain, Bartolomeo shouted excitedly. Ha ha ha. Everyone laughed when they saw this. Early the next morning, the members of the Black Group began to lower the sails and set off. With Blackbeard's gravitational push and Manatee Moo's pull, the Saberoo's speed can be described as flying, with the speed increased several times. Except for Ikaram who controls the rudder and Nami who observes the weather conditions, the other members are all practicing. Or practice the 6 styles, or practice hockey. Even Carmen joined in the practice after preparing the food. There is no way, when Zhuangzhuang, who is a pet, has joined in the practice of involution, the atmosphere on the ship is difficult for people to be lazy. This time, I still didn't see the old man Crocus when I passed the Twin Gorges. Not even Laboon was seen. He probably went somewhere to look for food. Blackbeard didn't care and headed straight towards the desert island next to Whiskey Mountain. As Nami said, they arrived on this stone desert island 1 day early because of the good weather. I originally thought I would have to wait until tomorrow to see Miss Robin, but as soon as the boat stopped, Blackbeard noticed a silhouette in the stone forest secretly observing their direction. Seeing this, Blackbeard grinned, waved his hand in that direction and shouted, Miss Robin, since you've arrived early, come over and have a meal together first. We arrived just in time for dinner. Come and try the skills of East Blue's #1 chef. Quote. Robin, who was secretly observing in the stone forest in the distance, saw the tall hockey man waving towards her through the telescope, and her expression changed. Unexpectedly, the other party discovered him just after anchoring. What is this ability? The distance between her and the ships on the beach was at least 500 to 600 meters, and she was still hiding in the stone forest. Can this be discovered? Why? Sighing softly, she could only give up the idea of escape, and then walked out of the stone forest and headed towards the Saberoo on the coast. At the same time, on board the Saberoo, they were all surprised to see Blackbeard waving and shouting. I just glanced in the direction of the stone forest but found no one. This made everyone a little confused. It wasn't until Robin walked out of the stone forest a few minutes later that they suddenly realized. He immediately admired his captain's ability even more. Especially Fan Oka and Vivi, the two guys who showed signs of awakening from observation hockey, suddenly shone brightly. I have to say that this observation hockey is indeed very practical. It can be said to be an excellent means to save one's life and defend against enemies. After Robin arrived at the shore, he was directly sucked to the boat by Blackbeard's ability. After a brief introduction, Blackbeard waved his hand and said, "Okay, let's eat first. Let's talk about something after eating. Anyway, it won't be short of a while." Quote, Robin didn't care when she saw this. After all, she had already boarded the pirate ship, and there was no point in thinking about anything else at this time. She has always been a smart and current woman. After drinking and eating, Robin was very satisfied. He immediately toasted Carmen and Blackbeard with a glass of wine and said with a smile, "Thanks for the hospitality. I haven't had such delicious food in a long time. I believe this will be a good start for our cooperation." Quote, after hearing what Robin said, Blackbeard had no intention of procrastinating any longer and said straight to the point. "The purpose of your voyage is to find the historical text, to explore the blank 100 years of history of world government, and to prove to O'Hara that I am right." Robin's body trembled when he heard this. She never imagined that all her goals would be touched so clearly by this man. How on earth did he know this? There is no doubt that Blackbeard's words shocked Robin greatly. But Robin, who has been struggling since he was 8 years old, has already mastered the art of cultivating chi and quickly calmed down. She shook the wine glass in her hand, put her chin in one hand and looked at Blackbeard with a smile and said, "So, how can Captain Teach cooperate? Or, what do you want me to do for you?" Everyone in the Black group was also very curious. Their captain seemed to have a good plan for everything in the future, and they also wanted to know what their captain was thinking. Blackbeard raised 3 fingers. "First, I want to help Vivi kill Crocodile, and I need you to take him out alone. Second, I want to seamlessly accept Baroque Studio and let me become Mr. Zero. Third, I want you. Well, I want you to join our Blackbeard pirates." Quote, "What? Are you kidding, Mr. Teach?" I have to say that even a calm Robin was shocked by Blackbeard's words. This man's appetite is not only huge, it's simply a huge mouthful. "You heard that right." Blackbeard patted Vivi beside him on the head and said with a smile, "Vivi is a crew member of my Blackbeard pirates. Now that her country is being ravaged by the sand crocodile guy, I must help her. But I'm a pirate, so I won't help people in vain, especially if I have to help the entire Alabasta. That being the case, I'm definitely going to charge some perks, and Baroque Studio seems to me to be the perfect fit. I still quite approve of Baroque Studio's intelligence capabilities in the first half of Grand Line. I will also need many such talents in the future, so this remuneration is very good. What do you think, Miss Robin?" Quote, "Are you so confident you can win the crocodile?" Robin looked at Blackbeard with interest. That man is not just a Shichibukai, he is also an invincible Logia demon fruit power. What's more, it's still in the desert of his home field. Are you sure you are his opponent?" Quote, Blackbeard chuckled upon hearing this. "I once had 2 so-called invincible Logia users who were defeated by me with just 1 punch. One is the rising marine star known as the White Hunter, Smoker, a user with the Logia Smoke Fruit ability. One is Fire Fist Ace, the captain of Whitebeard's second team, a user with Logia Mera Mera Fruit ability. How do you think Crocodile compares to them?" Quote, "What?" Robin opened her red lips. She found that she was once again shocked by this man. If this man didn't lie, then how strong is he? Fire Fist Ace is the captain of Whitebeard's 2nd Division, and he once refused to become a Shichibukai. Even a strong man of this level was beaten to death by Captain Teach. Could it be that she suddenly thought that Fire Fist Ace was the captain of the 2nd Division, and this Blackbeard was the captain of the 0 Division? Could it be that 4 Emperors Whitebeard's captains are ranked based on their strength? Doesn't that mean that this Blackbeard is the right-hand man of 4 Emperors Whitebeard? Hiss. If you are a strong person of this level, you might actually be able to succeed. Good. Robin drank the red wine in the glass in one gulp, stared at Blackbeard with her beautiful eyes, and opened her red lips slightly. I promise to cooperate with you. I can agree to the conditions you mentioned before, provided that you defeat Crocodile first. Blackbeard nodded. Quote, no problem. You can directly make an appointment with Crocodile to the underground of Alabasta's palace, and the text of Alabasta's history that you have been looking for is there. I'll tackle Crocodile there then, and you'll be able to see the full history of Alabasta. How? Quote, make a deal. Robin's face was full of smile. He raised his hand to Blackbeard and said with a smile. Well, nice to work with you, Teach Cabin. Snapped. Blackbeard held the white and tender hand and smiled. Happy to work with. After finalizing the plan, Blackbeard and the others only spent one afternoon repairing on the desert island, and then took the farthest route under Vivi's guidance. In order not to attract the attention of Baroque Studio and Alabasta's intelligence personnel. Now these two places are basically infiltrated by Crocodile people. Although the person who is now nominally in charge of Baroque Studio is Nico Robin, and no one knows that Crocodile is the real leader of Baroque Studio, I still say that just in case. If it weren't for Vivi, Blackbeard wouldn't need to be so cautious. But when it comes to the rise and fall of Alabasta and the life safety of his future father-in-law, Blackbeard will naturally not be careless. Otherwise, he could just take the Blackbeard pirates and drive Wushwang there. In this way, his fame can rise again. Yes, but not necessary. It is related to the rise and fall of Alabasta, a country with tens of millions of people. Moreover, this is an important part of his future plan, and he will not be careless. In addition, Crocodile has been immersed in Alabasta for so many years. If you give him time, he can still easily start a war. To be honest, there are only a few people with brains in the world of pirates. This is why Blackbeard values Crow so much. Even if his combat power cannot reach the top level in the future, at least it will be enough in terms of management logistics. See Circle Calendar 1518. What is most important? Talent. Therefore, this Crow is still worth recruiting for Blackbeard. While Blackbeard was thinking about this, he watched Vivi take out a map of Alabasta and start explaining. We in Alabasta are one of the largest countries on the Grand Line. The entire country is divided in two by the Santadora River. The largest city on the left is also the largest oasis and the largest water source, the Rain Land, which is now occupied by Shichibukai Crocodile. Most of the other small cities and villages belong to dry lands, and many people still lived in them before. But after Crocodile came, these places were completely dried up, and the population was concentrated in several cities controlled by the Baroque Studio. For example, Udi is the big city closest to the center of Alabasta. Opposite Udi is Arubana, the royal capital of Alabasta. The three big cities on the left are, from inside to outside, Udi, Yoba, and the port city of Aluma. On the right are four large cities. Except for the royal capital Arubana in the center, the other three are all port cities. They are Tamalisk, the easternmost city of Alabasta, Rapeseed, the southernmost large city, and Cattleya, not far from Rapeseed and on the other side of the mountains. Our landing site is a small harbor between Cattleya and Tamalisk, where there is a secret port built by the royal family. By landing from that place, you can reach the royal capital as quickly as possible. We need to make a long circuit to get to that place, so that the time it takes to get there is not much different from the time it takes Miss Robin to go to the Rainy Land first and then to the royal capital. That's the plan. Do you have any other suggestions? Quote. Everyone in the black group was sitting in a row, smiling as they watched Vivi standing in front of the blackboard with her princess-like demeanor and analyzing the geographical environment of Alabasta with ease. Good. Bartolomeo, as the master of praise, immediately took the lead in applauding. Bang bang bang. The other members of the black group also applauded enthusiastically and cheered at the same time. As expected of our Princess Vivi, what she said was great. Ah, Vivi, I love you. Nami, Vivi, you have the final say on your home court. No matter what happens, we, the Blackbeard pirates, can take over. The captain is right. Flattery badges. Shichibukai, didn't you expect to face such a big shot when you first went to sea? I really want to see how strong such a strong man is. Vivi, who was originally high-spirited and full of confidence, couldn't help but blush instantly after seeing this scene, stomped her feet angrily and walked down. Of course she knew it was a joke that no one had any objections to. If he has an opinion, his captain will not hide it. Robin, who was sitting on the side, was swaying a glass of red wine, crossing his long and round legs and watching this scene with interest. The atmosphere of this pirate group was different from all the pirate groups she had ever been with. Although she could feel that the people in this pirate group were not simple, and they had even seen blood, she would not be able to live long if she did not embrace the sight of blood when going to sea. That's how she is. After finalizing the plan, Robin rode her old turtle car and left directly. As for the next time to meet, she would contact him again. Most likely it will be a week later. Time flies like an arrow, the days and months fly by, and the days when you can't pretend to be cool fly by. A week later, under the royal mausoleum of Alabasta. Blackbeard and his party had arrived at this place 2 days ago, 2 days earlier than the time they agreed with Robin. I can only say that flying is really a very convenient ability. The ability to fly with a group of people is even more awesome. In the Black Bear team, not only is Blackbeard's gravity able to carry people flying, but the strong Pegasus form can also actually carry people flying. Zhuangzhuang can transform up to nearly 10 meters in length and has a wingspan of 20 to 30 meters. He can sit on all the members of the Black group without any problem. After all, he is in Zone Phantom Beast Pegasus form, and Zhuangzhuang's ability is still worthy of being exchanged. Especially since it hasn't awakened yet. Of course, it's far from comparable to Kaido's Zone Fish Fruit Phantom Beast species Blue Dragon form. But Zhuangzhuang is just a horse after all, and a horse that can't speak. Speaking of the Phantom Beast species, Green Dragon form. There seems to be another one. Blackbeard suddenly fell into thought. Why should such a good fruit be left to Momonosuke? Obviously the devil fruit is just a different color, and there is no problem with other abilities. In this case, wouldn't it be better to give it to badgers or eat it yourself? Blackbeard immediately made a note. When you pass Punk Hazard later, you have to stop by and pick it up. At this moment, the phone to contact Robin rang. Seeing this, the members of the Black group were shocked and turned to look at the phone bug. Is this coming? Sure enough, after answering the phone, Robin quickly said something and hung up the phone. Crocodile and I will arrive at our destination in half an hour, please be ready. Oh, it's been 2 days, is it finally here? Ha ha ha, Shichibukai, finally let's see where the gap between me and Shichibukai is. Crocodile's ability is very scary, everyone must be careful. Don't be careless. Don't worry Vivi, the captain is here, let alone Shichibukai, we won't be afraid even if the Marine Admiral comes. Ha 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 ha, kids, don't be too arrogant. Although the sand crocodile is not very powerful, it is not something you guys who have not mastered armament hockey can handle easily. But if you want to give it a try, then just bear my name as Blackbeard and go ahead and do whatever you want. As long as I'm here to watch, the sand crocodile can't kill you. Quote. Half an hour passed quickly with everyone in the Black group looking excited. Crunch. The people in the Black group who were sitting on the ground floor of the Alabasta Royal Mausoleum, in front of the historical text, had already heard the sound of the stone door opening from above. At the same time, Crocodile's excited laughter also spread. Ha, 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 ha. Nico Robin is indeed someone I value. I didn't expect that you actually found the historical text. Is the giant battleship, Pluton, finally falling into my hands? Whitebeard, just wash Lousy's neck and see. Ha, 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 ha. Wearing a white cowboy hat, a white denim body-shaping jacket, a purple navel-bearing suspender, a white short skirt and white boots, Robin covered his mouth and chuckled. Ha ha, I can only say it's my luck. Is it any luck, Crocodile originally wanted to say something, but when he reached the steps of the mausoleum, he was suddenly shocked by the 8 people and 1 horse standing opposite. But after so many years of conspiracy, he soon thought of a possibility. After stopping, he turned his head and looked at Robin behind him. His expression turned cold as he bit his cigar. "Hello, Miss All Sunday, won't you explain it to me? Why are there outsiders in this place?" He. Robin smiled sweetly. "Isn't it obvious, Mr. Crocodile? I betrayed you and found a new partner." Ha, 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 ha. Crocodile chewed his cigar and turned his head to look at Robin. He raised his hand and pointed at the group of people opposite and laughed. "Nicole, Robin, do you want to listen to what you are saying? Changed partner. Do these little-known guys deserve to be compared with me? Lousy as Shichibukai Crocodile. It seems that you are ready to die, right? But don't worry, Lousy won't kill you now. But, desert prison." As he spoke, Crocodile ignored the black group members on the opposite side, turned into gravel, floated up and rushed towards Robin, raising his hand to catch Robin first. His desert prison move will cause the person caught by his hand to absorb all the moisture from his body. At least for a while, he will not be able to regain his combat effectiveness, but he will still retain his vitality. Robin didn't expect Crocodile to act so decisively. But in the 20 years she has been at sea, what kind of life and death situations has she not experienced? What's more, she had figured out the sand crocodile's weakness a long time ago. Not to be outdone, she directly crossed her hands in front of her chest to use her abilities. Whoosh! But at this moment, a tall hockey figure stood in front of her. Then Robin saw the man lift his 2-meter-long legs and directly meet the sand hand grabbed by the sand crocodile. At the same time, the familiar laughter sounded in the underground palace. "How could the thief ha 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 the sand crocodile let you attack my historian?" When Robin saw this scene, his expression suddenly changed and he shouted. "Mr. Teach, be careful, this move of his will drain the moisture from the opponent's body as long as he touches it." Ha, 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 ha. Crocodile directly pressed his hand on Blackbeard's 2-meter-long leg wrapped in purple-black air currents, and laughed at the same time. "That's too late, Nico Robin, it looks like the new partner you picked is a fool." "Huh, what?" Boom. But before Crocodile finished speaking, he felt a terrible force coming from his palm, and then his palm was pressed back to his chest, and his whole body was kicked away by this force. Call out. Boom boom boom. The sand crocodile flew upside down for tens of meters, and did not stop until it smashed 3 walls. Ahem, wow. Sand crocodile, who had just stood up, felt a surge of energy and blood in his body, and coughed up a large mouthful of blood, with a look of shock and disbelief still on his face. Armament hockey. You are. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the stairs of the underground palace dozens of meters away. He saw the man slowly put away the whip and looked at him with a grin. Whitebeard's 0 Division Captain, Supernova Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach. Thief ha 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 ha. Blackbeard laughed and said, "I didn't expect that you, a high-ranking Shichibukai, would actually recognize a little person like me. Do not make jokes." Crocodile looked at Blackbeard with a gloomy expression. "How come you are here, and the color of the weapon just now is not ordinary armament hockey at all?" "Of course I came to kill you for my Miss Historian. Do you think I came for ancient weapon Pluton?" Blackbeard teased. Robin in the back looked at the man's face in surprise when he heard this, then covered his mouth and chuckled. "What Mr. Teach said is really nice. Then you must be responsible for others." "That's inevitable." Blackbeard put his arm around Robin's shoulders and said proudly, "If you want to touch my partner, you have to step over my body." Robin's body trembled, and then he quickly calmed down, with a soft light in his eyes. "Let's wait and see." Crocodile's face in the distance was as black as the bottom of a pot. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became, and he gritted his teeth and said, "I didn't expect that old man Whitebeard would hide a guy like you under his command. It seems like we can't be kind today. Don't think you can defeat me just because you know armament hockey. Just bury me in the ground today." Having said that, Crocodile was ready to use his ultimate move. Swish. But at this moment, a tall and sturdy figure appeared in front of him, followed by Badger's arrogant laughter. "Way ha 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 ha, Shichibukai, let me experience your strength." Finger pistol Gatling. Puff puff. Almost instantly, a dozen huge holes were left on Crocodile's body. If it were an ordinary person, he would have died long ago and could not die anymore. However, Crocodile was still calmly biting his cigar and looking at the astonished badgers in front of him, exhaling a puff of smoke and saying, "Does this useless person who doesn't even have a weapon dare to attack me? Whatever. Just deal with your subordinates first and let them feel the pain." Arc moon-shaped dunes. Tisk. After Crocodile finished speaking, he swung his left hand and turned it into a 5 to 6 meter arc-shaped sand blade that directly slashed through the slow body of badgers. Immediately afterwards, under the shocked eyes of the Black Group members at the rear, badgers shriveled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just one breath, he turned into a humanoid mummy and fell to the ground. Kill badgers instantly with one move. Hiss. Everyone in the Black Group gasped when they saw this scene, their faces full of shock. Is this Shichibukai's true strength? Blackbeard, who saw this scene from a distance, was not surprised at all. Taijutsu masters who have not mastered armament haki are no different from ordinary people to Crocodile. That's the power of Logia Devil Fruit. This is also why Logia Devil Fruit is called an almost invincible existence. HMPH, let's deal with one first. Crocodile looked up proudly and glanced at Blackbeard in the distance, only to see that he was still standing there leisurely holding Robin in his arms. It seems that this guy is just a little guy, but you are so indifferent. After Crocodile finished speaking, he rushed directly to the others standing in front of the historical text and shouted, "Then I'll take care of them all and see what you do." Badger's body twitched from time to time as he fell to the ground. Seeing this scene, Blackbeard smiled instead of getting angry. "Bajis, do you feel that 783 has been affected by the gap? If you can't master armament haki, you'll be like an ant in front of Logia Devil Fruit. This is why Logia Devil Fruit can be called an almost invincible existence. Remember the feeling of being on the verge of death at this moment, and recall how I usually beat you with armed colors." Robin, who was being held by Blackbeard's shoulders, originally thought that this Blackbeard was also a cold and typical pirate captain, but when she saw that he was still calmly teaching badgers, even she was shocked. "In this case, shouldn't we save people first?" As if aware of her thoughts, Blackbeard chuckled and said, "Don't worry, that guy Badgers is not that fragile. If their lives are really in danger, I will take action." At this moment, the battle in the distance also began. Bang bang bang. Van Oka did not hesitate to pull the trigger on the charging crocodile. In just an instant, 3 large holes appeared in Crocodile's forehead, eyes, and heart. Again, if it was an ordinary person, he would have died long ago. But Crocodile ignored these injuries and pounced directly on Fanoka, grinning wildly. "Sniper, the accuracy is pretty good, but to me, it's just like a bug. I'll treat you first." Crescent Dune. Tisk. Seeing the 4 to 5 meter long sand blade slashing towards him, Fanoka curled his lips and said, "I'm not that idiot like badgers. Do you want to make money by attacking at this speed? Innocent. Shave." Whoosh. When he finished speaking, Fanoka had disappeared from the spot and reappeared next to Badgers, who was already dozens of meters away. Then he picked up Badgers with one hand and quickly dragged him to Blackbeard's side. After taking a breath, he said, "Captain, this guy is indeed a monster to some extent." "That's right." Blackbeard patted Fanoka on the shoulder and said, "So Oka, armament haki must be mastered quickly, otherwise you will have no choice but to be slaughtered by others with this kind of ability." "Ah, I understand, Captain." Fanoka pushed up his glasses and nodded solemnly. Crocodile's expression on the opposite side was gloomy, but there was a look of shock in his eyes. "Why do you guys know all Marine 6 styles? Did you get the training method of Marine 6 styles? But it doesn't matter, it doesn't make any difference to me anyway. Don't be too arrogant. You, a guy who only relies on ability, can't even touch my clothes, Kakuzu." In the distance, Crow had already put on the espada, raised his hand to push up his glasses with his right wrist, and then disappeared directly from the spot. Spoon. Seeing this scene, Crocodile's pupils shrank and he said in shock, "Another 6th form, 6 moves. My move has surpassed the 6 moves." Crow said proudly, "I want to try and see if all physical attacks are ineffective against you." Spoon Blade Storm. Swish swish. The next moment, countless sword blades swept towards Crocodile from all directions. Tisk tisk. Almost in the blink of an eye, Crocodile was cut into countless pieces. Even he could not maintain the body of sand, and his body turned into a handful of yellow sand and scattered. But it quickly gathered together again, and Crocodile's expression was very exciting at this time. Swordsman. No. What kind of ability do you have? Whoosh. Crocodile ignored Crocodile and appeared on the stairs in front of Blackbeard. He shook his head and sighed. It seems that physical attacks have no effect. I gave up and realized the gap. Captain, it's up to you. Well, leave it to me. Blackbeard nodded with satisfaction. The reason why he didn't take action to kill Crocodile was to make these subordinates feel the gap and let them understand that there are still many opponents in the world that they cannot defeat. Now that we recognize the gap, we have the motivation to make progress. Seeing this, he didn't intend to continue reading. The real purpose of his trip is Crocodile's ability. Now that the purpose of testing his subordinates has been achieved, it's time for him to take action. Hateful. Crocodile was furious when he heard this. You guys actually use me as a touchstone. Who do you think labor and management are? In this case, it depends on whether you can protect them, Blackbeard. Go to hell with the erosion of reincarnation. As Crocodile spoke, he raised his hand and slapped the ground. Immediately afterwards, the ground cracked and turned into countless yellow sand, sweeping directly towards Vivi and the others behind them. Seeing this scene, Blackbeard was just about to take action when Bartolomeo in the distance stepped forward and raised his folded index and middle fingers and shouted. Captain, you don't have to worry about me. Let me block this yellow sand. Barrier ball. Blackbeard stopped when he heard this. He still trusted Bartolomeo's barrier fruit ability. This ability can only hurt the opponent unless the user's own physical strength is exhausted, or the armament hockey has mastered the highest level of internal destruction. It is simply impossible to do it with the current capabilities of Crocodile. After Bartolomeo finished speaking, a huge glass-like barrier ball suddenly appeared around him, with Vivi, Nami, Thunder Q and Zhuangzhuang wrapped in it. Boom. At this time, the impact of the sand waterfall just arrived, directly bombarding the barrier ball. However, the barrier ball only trembled slightly, but there was no damage. Seeing this, Crocodile narrowed his pupils again and growled. Where did you find these monsters? Thief, ha 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 ha. Blackbeard's body slowly floated up, with black mist surging around him. Facing the rushing sand waterfall, he seemed to be nothing. He looked at Crocodile in the distance and said, I've had enough fun, then. Sand Crocodile, hand over your sand fruit. Want my devil fruit? Don't be kidding, how can such a thing be possible? Crocodile sneered disdainfully, but he suddenly thought of something and his smile suddenly froze. Immediately, Crocodile looked at Blackbeard in the distance and said in disbelief. Is your ability capable of doing such a thing? Thief, ha 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 ha. Blackbeard opened his arms, endless darkness surged out, and said with a smile. You didn't refute, can I kill you? It seems that you have already awakened in your heart. As your final compliment, I will satisfy your question. Yes, I can indeed do it. Universal pull. As he spoke, Blackbeard directly raised his dark right hand and aimed it at Crocodile, who was still in shock in the distance. Buzz. What? Call out. Before Crocodile could react, he felt a terrible suction force attached to his body, and then his body uncontrollably lifted off the ground and flew towards Blackbeard, and Blackbeard was also flying at a high speed. Both directions went to belong to Yes. Snapped. Just between breaths, Crocodile felt that his breathing was stagnant, and his neck was already in Blackbeard's hand. Dare you let me get close? You're done, thief. Desert Greatsword. Crocodile roared angrily and used his ultimate move. During the Summit War in his previous life, Crocodile used this move to chop Akainu into 2 pieces. Although the reason why Akainu is a Logia does not have much impact, he is a Marine Admiral, and not everyone can do this. However, the next moment, the expression on Crocodile's face became wonderful. Because he discovered that his Devil Fruit ability has expired. No, my ability has failed. Why? How is that possible? You obviously don't have Seastone equipment. Crocodile yelled in horror. He never thought that the other party could disable his Devil Fruit ability. And the other party didn't put Seastone handcuffs on him. Etc. Could it be? Crocodile's eyes moved down, and he saw Blackbeard's arms surging with black mist. Seeing his gaze, Blackbeard grinned and said, Yes, this is also my ability. It's a pity that even if you know it, it's useless. Emission 6 King's Spear. Blackbeard held Crocodile in one hand and made a fist with the other hand, aiming at Crocodile's chest and punching him directly. Boom. The next moment, a white-purple light beam blasted out from Blackbeard's left fist, then came out from Crocodile's chest and directly penetrated the nearly 100-meter-deep underground tomb and soared into the sky. Rumble. Countless stone chips were crushed into powder by this move. A ray of sunlight shines from the entrance of a huge fist seal hole with a diameter of 2 to 3 meters at the top of the tomb. Then the sun fell on Crocodile, who was held in Blackbeard's hand and had lost consciousness with white eyes. Blackbeard, who was on the dark side, looked at the sand crocodile in front of him with a sigh, and then he slowly let go of his hand. Aha! A mouthful of suffocated blood spurted out of Crocodile's mouth along with shattered internal organs. Without any resistance, Crocodile received this move with his heart, and Crocodile was basically on the verge of death, even if he didn't die. Base. Blackbeard did not hesitate and directly pulled out the 7-star sword from his waist and looked at Crocodile lying below in the yellow sand and sighed. You can be considered a hero after all, so I'll give you a ride with 7 stars. PFF'd. Then, under the complicated looks of Robin and Vivi, and witnessed by everyone in the black group, Blackbeard inserted his sword directly into Crocodile's chest. Blood splattered everywhere. A generation of heroes, Shichibukai Sir Crocodile, fell. Before everyone's complicated emotions could flood their heads, Blackbeard decisively started hunting mode, and endless darkness surged out of his body. The darkness of the stealing god. The entire underground space was filled directly with darkness. Robin, who had never seen this scene before, was stunned and shocked. Then she saw Blackbeard raise his hand and put it on Crocodile's body, which was floating in the darkness, and then a ball of yellowish energy floated out of his body and landed on Blackbeard's palm. Vivi, come here. Immediately afterwards, under the surprised gazes of everyone in the black group and Vivi, Blackbeard raised his hand and pulled Vivi in front of him, and directly pressed Sandfruit's ability into her body with the latter's shocked look. Teach you. Needless to say, this is my parting gift to you. Blackbeard looked at Vivi's stunned face and smiled. I know that with the current situation in Alabasta, it is impossible for you to leave. This country needs you and the people also need you. But this world has always been dominated by the weak and the strong. Without sufficient strength, it is impossible to defend the superpower Alabasta. So, this fruit that is most suitable for Alabasta is left to you. At least until you master hockey, it is enough to deal with the first half of the Grand Voyage route and the rising pirate stars from all over the world. You have to protect yourself when I'm not around, Vivi. Quote. When Vivi heard this, tears immediately burst out of her eyes, and then she jumped up and clamped her legs tightly around Blackbeard's waist, ignoring everyone's gaze, and held his head in her arms. It was the first time in 2 lives that Teach experienced facial cleanser. Everyone in the black group around them was very emotional when they saw this. Although they were prepared, they still felt a little regretful after hearing what their captain said. But they also understand. In Alabasta's situation, it is impossible for Vivi to leave and go on adventures as pirates with them. What's more, they may cause even greater trouble in the future. As the Princess of Alabasta, it is best to stay at home, otherwise it may bring danger to Alabasta. Besides, who said you can't help the Blackbeard pirates once you get off the ship? Master the Baroque Studio. Use Alabasta as the base, expand the Baroque Studio and make it one of the intelligence chiefs in the underground world. By then Vivi will be in control of the rear, and there will be no need to worry about the Blackbeard pirates' intelligence or channels. This is part of Blackbeard's real plan. After burying Crocodile, Robin also finished reading the historical text. Seeing her walking silently, Blackbeard couldn't help but smile and said, What, does that historical text really contain the whereabouts of ancient weapon Pluton? It makes you so obsessed with it. Whoosh. Hearing this, everyone in the black group also looked at Robin. Robin, who was still a little lost in thought, trembled after hearing Blackbeard's words, and fell silent for a while. Although this Captain Teach gave her a very good feeling, and the atmosphere of the Blackbeard pirates was indeed different from other pirate groups, she still had to tell an ancient weapon who had only cooperated with him once or twice that this was about comforting the world. She thought she couldn't do it. But she also understood that her life and death were completely under the control of this man. If you don't say anything, you will probably be killed. But she doesn't think she has the ability to deceive the other party. No matter from which aspect, this man is not a simple figure. The crocodile, which was like an unreachable mountain to her, was as tender as a baby in the hands of this man, being played with and applauded by him. Do you really have any way to resist him? Snapped. Just when Robin was struggling, she felt someone tap her shoulder, which made her subconsciously raise her head. Then he met Teach's bright eyes, and immediately heard the man say with a smile. Don't worry about it, after all, you haven't boarded my ship yet, and you haven't established a foundation of trust yet. We are all adults, we cannot be so naive. It won't be too late to tell me when you have figured it out in the future. What's more, I'm not Crocodile, and I don't think that a mere Pluton can destroy the world or anything like that. Not to mention that his goal is to hit his father. Pluton's cannon can only destroy an island. My father's punch can cause a sea earthquake and destroy several islands with ease. Pluton destroying the world is just a view in the eyes of the weak. The only people in this world who can surpass everything are the powerful devil fruit and hockey. Sooner or later you will understand this. Instead of thinking so much, why not take us to take over the Baroque studio? Quote. Robin's body was shaken violently. She never imagined that the goal that Crocodile pursued throughout his life would be so dismissive in the eyes of this man. Everyone in the black group smiled after hearing what Blackbeard said. As expected of their captain. This kind of courage and hockey are simply beyond the reach of that sand crocodile guy. After an hour, on the outskirts of the royal capital of Alabasta, in a crew building. When everyone from Mr. 1 to Mr. 13 saw Robin, Blackbeard, and the Blackbeard pirates appear in front of them, everyone was dumbfounded. Let me introduce you again, he is Mr. 0, and he is also the boss of Baroque Studio. Quote. Robin smiled and raised his hand to signal Blackbeard. His appearance should be familiar to you. Yes, he is the captain of the 0 Division of 4 Emperor's Whitebeard. Previously, he destroyed 20 or 30 marine warships alone. Killed a Logia user marine supernova White Hunter smoker with one punch. Known as the successor of Whitebeard, Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach. By the way, 2 hours ago, he also killed Alabasta's patron saint, the sand fruit ability user with the invincible Logia, Shichibukai Crocodile. Now, your boss is standing in front of you, why are you still standing there? Hiss. Everyone in the Baroque studio gasped crazily when they heard this. After being shocked for a while, they shouted excitedly in unison. Meet the boss. Naturally, there was a trial after that. Because he wanted to win the hearts of everyone in Baroque studio, Blackbeard naturally took action personally this time and single-handedly overturned the entire Baroque studio. Even Mr. 1, the most powerful person, did not survive a single round under him. Such a powerful and terrifying strength directly impressed everyone in Baroque studio, and gained countless admiring and awe-inspiring looks. As for the 6-style training manual, Blackbeard did not give it to them, but asked Vivi to teach them later. The purpose is to establish Vivi's image in Baroque studio. Even if she is the spokesperson of Blackbeard, she must be kind and powerful at the same time. Otherwise, it will be like Crocodile, who does not know the general and the general. Night. After the banquet, Alabasta Royal Hot Spring Baths. Cobra, who was enjoying his time in the hot springs, suddenly stood up and wanted to hit Blackbeard. Master Teach, thank you for your love and care for Vivi. I am really grateful. Snapped. Seeing this scene, Blackbeard was startled and directly raised his hand to grab Cobra. He thought to himself, how could there be any reason for a father-in-law to kneel to his son-in-law? Although Cobra doesn't know it yet, he will know it sooner or later. If he kneels down, what else will he do? Your Majesty Cobra, you are too polite. We, the Blackbeard pirates, and Vivi are all friends through life, and we don't need this kind of gratitude. Blackbeard waved his hand very generously. What's more, I will also need Vivi's help in the future, so this can be regarded as an early investment. I see, is this a big Baroque studio? Cobra obviously knew this. When he came back in the afternoon, Vivi informed him of the follow-up plan of the Black Group, and he immediately smiled and said, Don't worry, Mr. Teach, we in Alabasta also need such an intelligence agency. After this incident with Crocodile, I understood the importance of intelligence and strength. I will fully cooperate with Vivi to develop Baroque Studio. Coupled with Vivi's current Devil Fruit ability, she will definitely be able to do what Mr. Teach expects. Thief ha 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 underscore. Blackbeard laughed and nodded. That's best. After another round of chatting, everyone in the black group dispersed. Just after Blackbeard entered his room, he was surprised to find that there was already someone in his room. At first he thought it was Robin who came to talk about work late at night, but when he opened the door, he discovered that it was Vivi. At this time, Vivi's long, aqua blue wavy hair was hanging freely, and she was only wearing a thin layer of white gauze, and the inside was even more snow white. Those two red strawberries are so bright and delicious. Even as a man of 2 generations, he couldn't help but be stunned by this scene. Turn off the lights. Vivi suddenly spoke out shyly, then she looked at Blackbeard with a flushed face and said, I'm here to fulfill my promise. This fulfillment of the agreement lasted just one night. This is destined to be a bayonet night. It has to be said that after being trained by Blackbeard himself, Vivi practiced physical training and her physical strength and flexibility have been greatly improved. Her height is also much higher than in the original plot. It makes Teach feel more energetic than his fitness instructor girlfriend in his previous life. Although this is the first time I have seen a celebrity, there are various postures emerging one after another, and there is no duplicate at all. Since everyone in the black group was leaving Alabasta early the next morning, Teach directly fought with Vivi until dawn. Early the next morning, Teach felt refreshed and took the black group members to bid farewell to Cobra, Ikarim and others. Everyone in the black group understood Vivi's absence. After all, Vivi had told them in advance that she was not used to separation, not to mention that they would never meet again in the future. Of course, the most important thing is that she was seriously injured in the battle last night, which made it impossible for her to get out of bed. After arriving at the port, everyone in the black group looked at Blackbeard, who was standing on the bow of the ship. The latter raised his hand and waved, laughing. Next, I'm going to take you to a place you can't even imagine. Nami, get ready to set sail for Magic Valley Town. Red Line, Holy Land, Mariajoy, Pangea. In the conference room. At this time, the 5 tallest controllers in the world, the 5 elders, were all staring at a phone bug with solemn expressions. It looked like he was waiting for a call. A few minutes later, the sleeping phone suddenly rang. Brew brew brew. Seeing this, the bald samurai in kimono, who is the financial god in today's world, Azanbalan v. Nashoro Sage, quickly answered the phone. Soon a nervous voice came from the other side of the phone. Master 5 Elders, I am CPO Stussy. After confirming the ability of 4 Emperors, Charlotte Linland's daughter, Fire Fist Ace is the son of One Piece Gall D. Roger. Wow. After hearing the news, even the 5 Elders couldn't help but stood up suddenly. The blonde short-haired agricultural warrior God Shepherd 10 Peter shouted in a deep voice. Stussy, are you sure this news is true? Hearing this, Stussy said in a serious tone. Yes, we have confirmed it several times. Fire Fist Ace went to Batalila Island to pay homage to his mother, Portgas D. Rouge, who was Roger's wife. And the one who took Fire Fist Ace away from Batalila Island back then was the current marine hero, Garp. Upon hearing this, Topman Vachulashang, the legal warrior god with a birthmark on his bald head and a mustache, immediately punched a luxurious high-backed chair next to him with an angry fist. Boom, tisk. The white luxurious high-backed chair turned into dust and fell to the ground in just seconds. You Garp, it's okay to just listen to the instructions but not the announcement, but you actually did such a thing. Saint Wachuli roared. Standing next to him, the white-bearded environmental martial god Marcus Mazisheng said calmly. What is there to be angry about, Saint Wachuli? Don't forget, Garp is also D. Hearing this, Saint Wachuli's body trembled, and his expression immediately turned gloomy. On the other side, the god of scientific defense, Jago Lucia Satan, who has white curly hair, said calmly. Don't worry about it for now, Stussy, you are in Happy Street now, right? Yes, Lord 5 Elders. Stussy said respectfully. Take care of the first one and immediately secretly detain Fire Fist Ace back to the Holy Land. This secret cannot be made public for the time being. Satan Sheng paused and said in a deep voice. That Charlotte Linland's daughter will also be dealt with. Stussy shook his head when he heard this and said. Lord 5 Elders, this may not be possible. Because Katakori and Desert Shohoshi are also guarding outside, they are worried that we will treat this girl like a slave. But this girl is also very smart. After finding out the situation, she took the initiative to delete the memories in her mind. There was no need to kill him. Quote, "Is that so?" Saint Satan began to ponder upon hearing this. The environmental marshal got on one side. Moshe Sheng shook his head and said, "It is not appropriate to have a conflict with Charlotte Linlin at this time. After all, we have captured Fire Fist Ace. If they were to face 2-4 emperors at once, both Marine and world government would be under great pressure. Moreover, we cannot guarantee that the Red Hare and Kaido will not intervene. By that time it will really be a world war. A single move affects the whole body. At this critical moment, you still have to be cautious and cautious." "That's right," Saint Nashulong also said in a deep voice. "We must publicly execute this Fire Fist Ace just like we executed Roger. We must not make the same mistake as we did back then. And after executing this evil son, it can also improve the reputation of Marine and world government. It can also boost morale at the same time. Of course, there is also a risk that is facing the Whitebeard pirates. Even in his twilight years, Whitebeard still has terrifying power, and we must take precautions. The next era is about to explode. Therefore, it is not appropriate to provoke Charlotte Linlin now." Quote. Saint Satan nodded when he heard the words. "That makes sense, then just test her and confirm that she has really erased her memory, and then quickly and secretly escort Fire Fist Ace back to the Holy Land." "Yes," Stussy responded solemnly. 5 days later. East of Magic Valley Town. "Hey, Captain Teach, I saw that exaggerated little villa on the edge of the road you mentioned. Ha 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 ha, it's really interesting. I didn't expect that there was a dilapidated ruins on the back." Bartolomeo, standing on the observation basin, looked at the 2-story ruined masonry house in the distance and laughed. "It seems like this is it." Nami also nodded. Squeak. At this time Blackbeard walked out of the cabin. After mastering the 7-star sword in the past few days, he had basically mastered the power of the 7-star sword, BB. His swordsmanship has even reached the level of a swordsman. Using the 7-star sword, he can easily perform slashes at the level of a great swordsman. He also mastered the ability to control people, and named this ability Mind-Locking Technique. This mind-lock technique can not only control people as simply as possible, but can also control Sea Kings, and read some of the thoughts and memories of most people who are much weaker than observation haki, or who have not mastered observation haki. This ability is somewhat similar to that of Pluton Rayleigh. Although it is not as good as listening to the sounds of all things, it is not much worse than the future. At the same time, I also gained a deeper understanding of Conqueror's haki and observation haki. Especially observation haki, there are faint signs of breakthrough. But Blackbeard knew that this needed an opportunity. And this time the destination is likely to have such an opportunity. The strength of everyone on the ship has also improved slightly in the past few days. The only thing that surprised Blackbeard was that Badgers was the first to awaken observation haki, while Van Oka was the first to awaken armament haki. Moreover, Oka's armament haki progresses very quickly. He is now already trying to use armament haki to wrap his sniper bullets. I'm afraid it won't be long before he can master the ability of armed color entanglement. Crow mastered the 6 postures extremely quickly. Except for the iron body and finger pistol, which he did not practice, he has already mastered the 6 style shaving, moonwalk, tempest kick, and even the life return. Coupled with his handy development of sickle fruit, it can be said that the current Crow is definitely the second strength point on the ship, tied with Badgers, besides Blackbeard. For now, he and Badgers are inseparable. Although Badgers has mastered the color of sight, the power of the sickle fruit is not very strong. Of course, Badgers is not without progress. The mastery of observation haki and the weapon color are also showing signs of awakening. Once he awakens his weapon color, he will once again become the undisputed second master in the black group. As for Bartolomeo, it's just that his fruit ability is too outrageous. With this ability, basically no one except Blackbeard can do anything to him. But it would be difficult for him to use his ability to hurt others. However, Bartolomeo's 6 postures have also made considerable progress, at least now he has mastered shaver and finger pistol. On the other hand, Poison Q and Zhuang Zhuang have made the slowest progress in strength. After all, They both focus on fruit development. Just when Blackbeard and the others had just anchored the Sabaru, there was an old man with a chestnut head on the shore, holding a cigarette and looking at them in surprise and asking, "Who are you and why did you come to my house?" After hearing this, Nami and the others were all confused. Because my captain said he wanted to give them a surprise, he hasn't spoken yet. Blackbeard heard this and said firmly, "You are Mont Blanc coolie guide, right? Are you interested in helping us take a trip to Sky Island? Maybe we can prove your ancestor, Mont Blanc Rolando, but that's not necessarily the case. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."